Welcome to the Popko Project. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Shirts for the Scene. Head over to the popkoproject.com and you can purchase your favorite band t-shirt. It is no secret that 2020 has sucked a big fat one. Artists and musicians have had to cancel almost all of their shows, which really has hurt them financially. Grab a shirt, support a band. The proceeds of each sale go right to the band whose shirt you are buying. Once again, head over to the popkoproject.com and grab your shirt today. Shirts for the Scene is made possible by Axelrad Screen Printing in Wilkes-Barre. Visit them online at axelradarmy.com. My guest today was the editor of The Weekender from 2017 to 2011. For those of you who don't know, The Weekender back in the day was the Bible when it came to the arts and entertainment scene in Northeastern Pennsylvania. We talk about his road to becoming the editor of The Weekender, some of the accomplishments while he was there, how he made his exit, and what he's up to today. This is The Weekender Files. Welcome to the show, Michael Lello. What's up? What did I just say? What's up? I was going to say, what's going on? And then I said, what's up? And I combined the two together. What's up?
I said, what's on?
What's up? I'm already laughing. And we didn't even start yet. So, Mike, what's going on?
Not too much yet.
I'm glad to see you got the memo. You had to be in front of a brick wall.
Mm-hmm. Brick is good.
Thank you for complying with that.
Yeah.
Brick is good.
Yep. It's the least distracting part of my apartment.
Yeah.
Because if I was to flip the camera around, I have this not ridiculous wall, but my wife was kind enough to, I had all these framed concert posters, and they're kind of like, you buy them and then they sit in the closet and, you feel like a jerk. And she put them all up. So, Roger Waters and, Phil Lesh and all these things. And I also I'm one of these people that actually listens to CDs. I haven't shunned, digital stuff, but I just kind of like having them. So I have it's funny how things have changed. I had to find a place in England to order CD racks to mount on the wall because that's a weird item to have now.
Sure.
I remember everyone used to have the CD towers and whatever. But anyway, that answers the question you didn't ask me about the brick wall. What kind of? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of hoping you'd be in front of a bookshelf because.
Yeah. Well, see, I don't know how to read, so I actually don't appreciate you bringing that up. But anyway.
Oh, well, my guest today is Mike Lello. Mike Lello and I worked together at The Weekender. He was the editor for the paper from 2007 to 2011. And this is part of what I'm calling, I guess, the Weekender Files. Where are they now? Mike has spent a lot of time in media over the years, and I'm excited to talk to him today because we talk regularly, right?
Yeah.
But, it's been a long time since we've just kind of really talked face to face, right? So
right.
This series is very exciting for me. So I'm hoping that it gets a good response, and I hope the guests enjoy it as well. But what have you been up to, man? It's been a long time.
Yeah, I've been living in New York for 6 years. It's gone by really quickly. 6 in a few months, and the nature of media is jobs tend to come and go, people tend to come and go. It's rare someone settles into a position or company. It's not like it used to be. So I've had a few different jobs here, but things have gone really smoothly, and for the last the two things worth mentioning that would stand out, I guess. A couple of years ago, I started working at the New York Post, which was, amazing, great opportunity. And I got to do some really cool things there, be part of a great group of people. And it's pretty exciting. And a little over a year ago, I was approached by the digital team of Fox News. And I've actually been there for a year now.
Oh, wow.
And it's been great working for their website as a copy editor. It's kind of exciting, like some major story happens, Trump does this or that, or Pfizer vaccine is approved, before someone's phone buzzes and they get the alert if they're signed up for it, or, whether you're signed up for New York Times or ESPN or whatever, that doesn't just come out of thin air, So, I'm looking those over to make sure, looking at the headlines and the story to make sure, it's not all that. Some of it's like slower and stories that are smaller, a new dinosaur skeleton was discovered or something. And it's, those stories are cool too. They help round everything out. If you think of a newspaper, that's the story that's like on page 8, but maybe it's like kind of a cool story. So, you're working on something like that, and then someone will like ping you and say, hey, could you take, like today, it was like, hey, they hit, we have a pretty urgent story, 17 million coronavirus cases in the U.S. is now the number. Could you look over that? So I put aside what I was doing and looked that over and pushed that out. And, I don't know if it was on that story, but then I hear my phone buzz. I'm like, I wonder what that is. And I look, and it's the thing I was just working on, and it's like, oh, that's cool. So that's what I've been doing, full time. I still have the blog. I have started a blog. It's coming up on 10 years actually in the spring.
Wow.
Highway 81 Revisited, which you've been a supporter of. I appreciate that. Your top album picks of the year. You participating again this year, so we'll have those up. In fact, you sent them in before I even asked about them. I was like, oh, I forgot. Yeah, I got to do those lists this year. So then I reach out to some other people too. So still doing that as well. When I have the time. I wish, like anyone else, I had more time, but that's pretty much it professionally what I've been doing.
Yeah, you put out a lot of content for it being a hobby or a side project.
Yeah, it definitely is a side project. Does not pay the bills. It actually causes some bills, a little bit. Just the general, the email address costs a few dollars a year, and
that's how this thing's going too.
Yeah, I mean, you got to spend a little bit, and you got your microphone, everything looks good there. It's the kind of thing we talk about a lot, you and I, John, but, in the, if you were doing this podcast maybe for a company or not yourself, they might say, well, once it starts making money, then we'll buy you a microphone.
Right.
For now, just use like what I'm doing right now. I'm just yelling into the computer and magically it's blasting into your house somehow. But, that was always like even that was a struggle at the Weekender sometimes. Like, oh, we're really excited about the web and digital. Okay, so we're going to let an intern run all that.
Right.
It's like, well, you can't, which is it then? It's like we're really focused on our offensive line this year, so we're going to bring a bunch of homeless people and let them try out. It's like, well, then you're not focused on it. You're saying you are, but you're not showing it. So, that's the kind of the frustration of that thing. So, and like what you're doing and what I'm doing with Highway 81 is like you only have yourself to blame. So if you land you land that Bowling for Soup interview, which is awesome, it's not like, well, yeah, but the marketing department lined that up for me, or this guy, I knew that. I mean, yeah, you had to have a connection to make it happen like anything else in life, but it was yours to own. Yeah. And if you fall on your face, you don't have anyone else to blame either. And I actually prefer that. I don't like letting people down. I also don't like other people letting me down or relying on. It's kind of I don't know, it's probably like a mental issue, a control issue or something, but like, it's like, okay, I did that, or I screwed that up. Okay, I will fix that. Now I have to now wait for someone else to fix it and maybe not even fix it.
Yeah, well, that's why I started this, because the Weekender kind of fell apart, so to speak, and we'll get into that. And then the radio show that I had for 3.5 years got put on hiatus, and that's fine. That's their money. It's their business. It's whatever. But I felt like doing this. I mean, no one can take this away from me. So we're just going to do it.
Yeah,
if it fails, it fails because I failed.
Really that simple.
Yep. But yeah, so let's go back. You were the editor at the Weekender in 2007. I want to say June-ish, I think you started.
Jeez, how do you know that? It was actually, I think, July. But
Okay.
that's how do you? I'm just curious. How
Very good with dates. I'm very good with dates.
That's great.
Well,
I'm gonna have to ask you when my anniversary is then. So if you're good with dates,
no, I am.
You should get an app or something where you remind people of their things in their life. That's actually a good idea.
Yeah.
Or you could just text people, right?
Yeah, I'll just text them, hey, don't forget your wife's anniversary. Yeah. But it's been weird. Like, I can tell you, it's useless knowledge. I could tell you what a song is within probably the first 10, 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And then I could tell you probably within a week, or if not a couple of days, of when it came out.
Wow.
In what year. As long as I own it, as long as I'm familiar with the album itself.
Yeah.
And that probably ranges between like the years 2000, maybe not even back to the 90s. But as of like, 2010, 2011, like it kind of gets fuzzy after that, just because there's just too much going on. But yeah, useless knowledge that I have. So yeah, you started.
Tool Lateralis. What Tool Lateralis? When did that come out?
I don't know.
I don't know either. So you could have just lied and I'd been like, bingo.
January 1998. I don't know.
1935. Yeah.
So I just lied. I lied to you.
Came out during the Depression, actually. People don't realize that.
I just lied to you. So yeah,
it's fine. People lie all the time.
People have been asking. So
yeah, there's a lie. Speaking of lies. Good stuff.
No, but so you started at the Weekender in 2007. How did that kind of happen? I know that you were in media before that.
Yeah,
I think the Times Leader, but go ahead, tell the story.
So I had some. For people that don't know, the Times Leader owns the Weekender, so it's that situation. So the Times Leader, the daily paper, I had interned there in college. Had a really good experience there as an intern. It was awesome, actually. And then I did my first job out near the Pittsburgh area. Ended up moving back home for a job at the Times Leader, where I did a little bit of everything, a little bit of too much. I was really spread too thin. I mean, I think I had about 7 different bosses in 2.5 years, because it was just crazy. So that was a rough experience. I mean, it was. It was poorly run, but it was the actual experience I got, like the nuts and bolts of the things I was actually doing, like most jobs, that was good. It's the other stuff that was horrible, Actually, it got to the point where I would throw up every morning before I went to work. And,
for real?
Yeah. That was the Times Leader.
Wow.
So I left. A big shocker, right? And here comes my cat. Are you going to join us? Come on, let's go. All right. Or just ruin the furniture. You could also do that. Okay. So anyway, distracting. He's under here. So I moved out to the Philadelphia area, and it was an opportunity. I wanted to eventually pursue a master's degree out there, or at least have the option to, at least be physically nearby the schools I want to go. So I worked for a paper out near Philly, in Pottstown, not to be confused with Pottsville. It's between Reading and Philly. And then I went to another place. So all the while, for most of the while, I was doing freelance stories for the Weekender. And I just rambled a little too much. But the fact is I made some connections with the Weekender when I was at the Times Leader. So I got to be good friends with Christy Greer, who was working at the Times Leader with me. And then she moved over to the Weekender. And even when I was still at the Times Leader, I wrote like 1 or 2 articles for her. Like there's this band called Mo. It's a jam band who I was really into, and they were coming to the Scranton Cultural Center. So I did a review of that. Just something I wanted to do, something they were able to use. Here and there a little bit, this and that. And then when I moved to Philly, I stayed in touch. Joe Student, our mutual friend, was editor there at one point. I think Christy was general manager, so it was still people I knew. I knew Joe a little. I know him become closer over the years. So I was doing some freelance work for Joe. Then Joe moved out to Philly, and he, with Christy, well, not like as a couple, but like
right.
Christy moved out there. There was a new paper called Philly Edge, which was like a Weekender type paper in the Philly, mostly in the suburbs. And Christy was general manager. Joe was editor, I believe, something like that. And Joe needed some freelance writers. So I was doing a little bit of that. So I was doing a little freelance work for him. In the meantime, Alan Stout, who I knew from when I was working at the Times Leader, became the editor at the Weekender. So this is like, this guy's traded to this team for that. It's interesting. Like, when you think of it, it's like, I picture Charlie and Always Sunny, like, who has Pepe Silva with this line going there? But so Alan was the editor of the Weekender, and I was freelancing for him. And I got in a situation there where things were pretty structured there, and I had some experience and also interest in writing about like Grateful Dead related stuff and Fish related stuff, like those jam bands or what people call hippie bands. I just was interested in seeing those bands, and they were usually good to talk to, and some of them like were accessible. Like some of the surviving members of the Grateful Dead, if they're doing some show at the Scranton Cultural Center, it was not out of the question that they would do an interview. So he basically said, you could do that kind of stuff. Anything coming to the Jazz Cafe, if you're interested, just pretty much write about it. So I was doing that. That was fun. Still working my day job. And, while this was happening, I had a day job where I liked the company. It was the opposite of what I was saying before, where the structure was great. I was treated well, but I wasn't passionate about what I was doing. So I was like, okay, kind of going through the motions. And then Alan says at some point that he's not going to be editor of the Weekender anymore. He was going to take another position in the company, newspapers and education, Times Leader. And it was like a casual, I don't know if it was on the phone, it was probably email. I said, well, who's going to be the new editor? Just so I would introduce myself and say, because there's no guarantee they're going to let you stay freelancing. You're not on staff or anything. They could just not ever have you again. And I think he said, well, I don't know. He said, but, have you thought of applying? And I had not. It had not crossed my mind. I was happy where I was living in Philly. I had a lot of friends of mine within walking distance, which is crazy. But in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, but those friends now, they're kind of getting married. They're starting to drift a little bit. Because that post-college thing when you're like 27 and you're still acting like you're in college, but like in between those nights, you're going to an office.
Yeah.
I think you probably know a lot about that. Yeah. But I wasn't quite there. I was like post that, but somewhere in between, like Britney Spears, not a girl, not yet a woman, or whatever. I'm still a boy, not yet a man. And so I was like, I don't know. And so I called a few people that had worked there that I knew, because I'm like, all right, how often do you have an opportunity to apply for a job and you could literally talk to like 3 or 4 people that could tell you what it's like there? Mm-hmm. So I talked to a few people that I just previously mentioned. Those were, and well, here's why you want to do it. Here's why not. Here's this, here's that. And I'm like, oh man. So first of all, that's assuming that I would get the job. So I applied. It can't hurt to apply. Went through the process, interviewed with like 5 different people, and they made the offer. And it was a really difficult decision, because in some ways I'm like, the moving back home thing felt like a step backward in a way. I'm like, I'm going to move from the Philadelphia market, the larger market, to a smaller market. Is that a step backwards? But it was stuff I was passionate about, and a lot of different things I liked doing, whether it was kind of working on some leadership things and like mentoring people to an extent. Actually, the nuts and bolts of editing a story and helping a story out, make it better, headlines, and getting to write a lot more about music and stuff in the area. And another thing that made the job attractive to me is through the interviewing process. I mean, you never know like what you're told in the interviewing process, what you're told they're looking for, what they tell you about the future of this product in any line of work, and what the reality is are usually a little different. And that's just life. Like if I was hiring someone, I'm sure what I tell them, it might not work out that way. Your schedule might change because of something, or, it's not that they're lying. It's just things evolve. But one thing that the people were pretty consistent about is they didn't want someone to just come in and just keep everything on automatic pilot, keep everything exactly the way it was. They want you to come in and, the word now would be disruptor. They say like in tech, but they didn't want me to come in there and just like tear everything up and like, all right, we're starting over. So that was a little bit of the clincher for me, because I wasn't interested in just going and just clicking the mouse. I could do that anywhere. Why move somewhere for that? So that's why I did it. I think now that I look back on it, and it was a rocky ride. It really was. It was a bit crazy, but I got a lot out of it. I don't regret it. Like even the negative things had some good consequences for me. I learned some things about myself, and about human nature in the workplace, and made a lot of great connections and did things that I never thought I would do, like event-related stuff that I never wanted to do, that I just kind of like jumped into, and next thing you know, we have bands, Strand of Oaks playing on a dock in Harvey's Lake, and we're filming it,
That was,
you were there.
That was one of my favorite, I still talk about that to this day.
And that would not have happened anywhere else I have worked, including the places I've worked in New York. So. No,
and it's funny, so I wanted to ask you too, I kind of felt when you arrived at the Weekender, because I was there at that point for a couple of years, you kind of came in and you took ownership of the job and kind of the staff.
Well, not to interrupt, but, I think I had to. You put a lot of pressure on me. I remember this at Hops and Barley's. I think it was like my first night there. And you're looking like you don't remember this, but just
me. Okay.
This is you. Yeah,
I'm excited.
And you stood up and you're like, Michael is here and he's gonna check this and that and this. And I'm like, oh wait a minute, I just started. I don't even know if I'm gonna be good at this. And you're like, And I was like, okay, that people take this stuff seriously. Like the people that work there want this to be good. It's not just 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 or there was a good pressure in that way where you knew the decisions you made and the things you did had an impact on people. And honestly, I have not really felt that elsewhere. Like,
I really did that.
Yeah. It was a small group, and there was even some people that didn't work at the paper that were there, like friends, just the crew that used to hang around. And I don't know exactly who all was there. It was in not the first room when you go in the second room, the dining room. Yeah, I missed that place. Now I could go for some of their the coldest beers. I mean, those are oh
yeah, there's ice in the glass,
and their food is fantastic. Oh god, that place is great. Anyway, so that was what you were saying. You felt I was going to come in. You had this sense about things, about taking ownership of things, and that's a tricky thing too, because even I use a lot of sports analogies because sports and music are the only things I truly feel that I really understand, I think, in life. But when a new coach comes in, I think of I'm a big Penn State fan, went to school there. When Bill O'Brien came in as the head coach after Joe Paterno left and died and everything, he had a situation where there was things he wanted to do his way, but every move he made was going to be judged by maybe 1 million people. Now, the Weekender is not that. But if I came in there and said, let's get rid of the model of the week.
Never would have happened.
No, not happening. First of all, I would have been overruled, but if I even suggested that, everyone in the office would have looked at me a little sideways and what is this guy thinking? What? So you have to balance keeping the tradition of things and what makes the brand what it is, with evolving with the times and putting your own personal imprint on it. Not like I'm putting my picture on the cover, but there was a couple things I wanted to do that I thought we should do. The thing people will talk about, the Weekender, the Wilkes-Barre paper, and then Electric City is the Scranton paper, which was Electric City was the Scranton paper. That's true.
Right.
But, the Weekender was branded as Northeastern Pennsylvania's #1 entertainment weekly. I think that's the verbiage there.
Yeah.
But I felt it skewed toward Luzerne County, which, how could it really not? It's owned by the Times Leader, which is based in Wilkes-Barre. The people are working in the Wilkes-Barre office. More people working there lived closer to Wilkes-Barre than to Scranton. So I was like, well, let's just keep it. Let's just make sure if there's something big in Scranton, we don't miss it. And let's start making some connections there. And that would help advertising, we would hope to. So, there was that. And then some of the music things. The one thing I wanted to musically, a lot of people, I know our friend AJ Jump, he would introduce me to people and say, Mike's the music editor at The Weekender. I wouldn't correct him, but someone would walk away. It's like, I don't want people getting the wrong idea or think I'm a bigger deal than I am or whatever, but I'm just the editor. There is no music editor. But we covered music so much, it was awesome, to do that. But I felt I wanted to make it harder to get on the cover. And there was a time where all you had to do is release an album, and that already put you in the top 1% of local bands, because to release an album, you had to book a studio, you had to do this, you got to have the CDs printed out. It got to the point where anyone could release anything. And I just wanted to okay, let's not use the same format for coverage for a new business or a new system. So, band releases album to me is not cover story. You know what I mean?
Right.
And sometimes, things will be pitched to me internally from our boss or whatever. So-and-so's putting out an EP. I'm like, and? It's like, well, what do you mean, and? I'm like, this isn't 1998. You know what I mean? Like, they're doing that, and then what? They have a CD release show. Okay, where is it? Jimmy's Rock Club. I don't know. Okay, fine. It's like, oh, no, it's at Tinks, and it's going to be sold out. Like, oh, and so-and-so produced it from whatever band. Oh, all right. And this is their third album, and, this and that. Like, you just try to make it like a bigger deal. So that way, when it does happen, it's just like, oh, that band's on the cover of The Weekender. Not like, oh, yeah, every week we have a different band. So that was something I tried to do. And I don't know if I achieved any of these things. I just know what I tried to do. It's probably a matter of opinion,
No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you can't just put every Joe Schmo on the cover of The Weekender. I mean, I think we as a staff put our, blood, sweat, and tears in that thing. And we wanted to make it the best possible. And, if you just did whatever, like you're saying, oh, this guy's putting out a 3-song EP, like, who cares? Or if it's, I don't know, just name anything. It just,
yeah. And
that's reserved
sometimes too. It would ruffle feathers sometimes too.
Yeah. It was reserved for, something good happening. And we took pride in
it should be special. And, I figured it out one year because I remember I had tacked to my board. It was every week, January 10th, whatever. And then you'd write in what cover it was. So there's 52 weeks in the year, obviously. But right off the bat, there were like 10 covers that were gone. They were already, promised out, so to speak. So you'd have Model of the Year cover. There was the Model of the Year, if I remember, preview, and then the actual Model of the Year announcement, whatever. So there's 2. And then there was the Christmas issue. And then there was Concert for a Cause. And then there was this and that. And the other thing. What was that?
Swimsuit.
There was the the tattoo convention, right? Yeah. So those are all cool things. But I'm looking at that, and I'm like, so now you're telling me we could come up with 42 covers a year. So we're not going to give those away. We're not going to just be like, throw whatever on there. You know what I mean? It's tough you had to make it more difficult. And I remember the one thing I talked about with Rachel, who was our boss. I'm like, well, what if we had a music issue? And I think eventually we came to the decision, we cover music left, up, down, sideways every week. We've established that. Why don't we just kill off the music issue? We're going to be forced to come up with some theme that, it's like, okay. And I think even there was another thing where it was at 2 for the model of the year. Could we just do 1? Could we do so those things were cool, but it was just maybe increase the value of what that cover meant. Not saying anyone else was devaluing it. Right. Just a different set of ideas,
Yeah. And talk a little bit about too, you and I think it was Nikki was the staff writer, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and you guys didn't just pull stock images off of the internet. Right. I remember we used to get local people involved. We would do cover shoots. We would, really.
That goes back. That goes back way before my time. We had the framed issues in there, and I used to look at some of them, and then we changed some of them out if we had a new thing up. And, there was the one in the bowling alley. I think Jim Gavinas shot that. It was Mighty Fine Wine, maybe. Was the band. So that was always the thinking, I think, at the Weekender. It wasn't, if you were writing about like a national band, if you had an interview with Aerosmith or something, you probably weren't going to set up a photo shoot with Aerosmith.
Right.
So in that case, you would have the stock image, but we'd have ideas that maybe, let's do this to it, or let's do one of these. But we'd either take a photo or illustrate something. And when I say we, I don't mean like me personally. I have no artistic visual art talent. But we would kind of brainstorm those things out. And you mentioned
But I think that it made it special. Again, we took the time to do that, and
it makes it stand out. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. But I think people don't understand the amount of time and effort that it took that we put into that. Because
maybe if you're doing it right, they won't understand it. You know what I mean? Everything should seem like if a restaurant is having problems and the cook is fighting with this guy and this is happening, as the diner, I shouldn't know any of that.
Right.
If the waiter's like, oh, what a day, it's like, no. So it should look easy, and there was a reputation, the Weekender, it's a bunch of partiers and they don't work hard and they're just drunks. And that might have been and we're both, we are both drinking just for the visual record here.
Cheers, sir. I'm using this for you.
Oh, good. Yeah. Big fan of the Red Sox. Big fan. Good. But
this was 2013, just so in case, because it's been a long time since you guys, the Yankees, that is, has
I'm not on the team.
Gone to and won the World Series.
I got the Yes Network on over here. Brian Cashman is
you guys be watching the old World Series wins, trying to relive the past.
It's funny. I saw a show the other day. It was listed New York Knicks classic. It was classic games of 2020, and it was 2 hours long. I'm like, how? That should be 3 seconds long, that show. The Knicks, come on. But the Yankees got to make some changes, I think. But we'll see what happens. What was the question? What were we talking about? Drinking. Oh, there wasn't the thing. I remember an ad for an ad rep, a want to add a job ad, and it said something want to work hard and play harder or something, or come join us as an ad rep. And I haven't sat. I'm like, oh boy, we're going to be just getting, drunks because, but I think part of it was playing up that image too. I think within the company, we were really seen as all those young goofballs, those crazy kids over at the Weekender,
Oh, we were the redheaded stepchildren.
Yeah, I think they thought we were having orgies and doing coke off our desks, and that was only on Thursdays. I don't know why they thought that was.
If you guys were doing that, didn't let me know, I would be very upset.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't know?
I had no idea.
Oh, yeah. We used to go to that. No,
I thought that first, cheers to you would have really got me in the club, right?
Yeah, no, that wasn't enough. But I don't even know where I was going with that, to be honest with you.
We were just saying that
there was the image, the idea that this is a goofy thing. Oh, you're talking about people who didn't understand the work that went into it.
Yeah.
But I think most of the time you just don't. I'm watching the TV, I'm not thinking about it later. If you do things properly, you shouldn't really be drawing attention to. Sure. Yourself either. And that's that's something I'd like to touch on, because one of the things that made me a little nervous about coming to the Weekender is I love talking like this and having discussions about work and life and stuff going on, but I'm comfortable talking about myself in situations like this. But one thing that made me a little nervous about the Weekender is picking it up, I felt like there was a bit of an attitude that the people that worked there saw themselves as local celebrities or something like that. And maybe they were, but that made me nervous on two levels. That one, am I going to be working with big ego maniac types type people? And number two, am I going to be expected to behave that way? You know, because I'm comfortable with this, but like getting on a stage, like even though, you know, we did have a lot of good opportunities to like do things, you know, like usually if you're working in advertising or on the content side of things, you're probably usually not going to go onto a stage and say, you know, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome whatever band it is. You know what I mean? Underground Science. Let's give AJ's old band a shout out, you know? And I was like, I don't want people looking at me. I don't want other people thinking like they're celebrities, you know, like, am I going to be working with like, you know, don't you know who I am types? And it ended up not being that really. And part of it, you know, I wanted the work to kind of speak. Like, don't, you know, the whole show, don't tell. Like, right. Don't tell people. Like, don't, like, you know, don't. We had ads like about, and it makes sense. Like, I'm not thinking like a promo person, but an ad that would say, bringing you the greatest music coverage in Northeastern Pennsylvania. You know, I'm like, I'd rather use that space to actually have some music coverage. And you shouldn't have to say it. But you know what? The New York Post, I think, says on the back, the best sports section in the city. I think It says that there. So maybe I was a little too sensitive to it because I was like coming at things like super like, you never draw attention to yourself, you know, because, you know, you're kind of taught like even in journalism school, like stay out of the story, you know, don't bring yourself into it. And, you know, that was my like way of thinking. I was really stiff in that type of thinking, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think there's also too, like with, you know, editorial and that side of things, it was always very, you know, church and state.
Yeah,
almost, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And like, I saw both sides. I was, you know, I was the GM at one point. So like I had to kind of manage those two avenues, but like, which was cool because how do I say this? Because I always feel like I was a host at a restaurant as well as a server at a restaurant. And I feel like everyone in life should have to be a host at a restaurant at one point in their life, just to understand like their position. So like, I say that because I like the fact that I was able to see both sides. But I think I appreciate what you said about, you know, taking that space and filling it with content, but I also appreciate the side that like is an ad that says like, hey, you know, we're the number one, whatever it might be.
Yeah. And I think I appreciate it now.
Yeah. And I just think you have to have that.
And also, you know, in a weird way, it's like you were boosting, or not you, but, you know, the paper was deciding to promote the stuff that I was working on, the stuff that Nikki was working on, the whole editorial team, which was basically me and Nikki and the freelancers. Why would I like scoff at that?
Yeah.
But again, you know, I was a lot younger, I guess. And I was actually never had that kind of like backing or support before, you know? It was a good thing. It all came from a good place. I think part of it was just me being like,
reserved.
Yeah, in a weird way. I mean, for as much as I talk and everything, but like when it becomes like the spotlight type thing, I'm like, you know, like, so it's like embarrassing. Like I remember I won an award, which was great. I was so excited about it. And they put a full page thing in and picture me. And it was so scary because they said like, you have to get your picture taken today. I think it was a Wednesday, and Wednesday was our day where we just showed up kind of like this, because that was the day the paper came out, and the night before we were there late.
Yeah, it was like the walk of shame in the
sweatshirt and the this and that.
Walk of shame into work on Wednesday.
Take the picture. I was so embarrassed, you know.
Yeah.
And then we used to do the Christmas pictures, you know, and they were funny. They were fun, you know, like the family picture, type thing. And I remember my friends have a fishing cabin out in Laceyville, which is out there, like Wyoming County, I guess. And I was up there one weekend for fishing, and on the refrigerator was that Christmas photo from the Weekender, and like there was who knows what drawn on me, you know, mustache or something, you know. Before now they wouldn't have to draw it, but that kind of stuff. And you know, the thing that really used to bother me though is like I could have did some interview with like Jesus Christ himself, and I wouldn't, you know, no one would really mention it. And then the next week, people were like, oh, I saw your picture in the Weekender. Oh, that was so cool. You were there at the Christmas thing. Or I saw your picture. Look what you missed, and you're out some bar. I'm like, and again, it's like, you don't want to be like, why are you mentioning that? But it's like, I actually worked on something that I studied and love and whatever. and you're not mentioning that. And then it's like,
Yeah, that's tough. And I do understand what you're saying. It took you hours to do what you did, and they're looking at this picture that took us 5 minutes.
Nonsense, right? This goofy thing I was embarrassed to do in the first place.
Yeah, dicking around. But, no, I get that. But that, I mean, I think both sides, together, made it what it was. And
absolutely.
And then you had one thing I loved about it was, we had the competition. We had the electricity. And I was born in an era with Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan, if you talk shit to him, he would just straight up embarrass you, right? And I had so much pride, and it kind of goes back to what you said when I made this toast or whatever I did that I don't remember. That was genuine. Whatever I said was so genuine, and I say to this day, well, I said during the time of my tenure there, that I would have got a Weekender logo tattooed on my body. That's how passionate and proud I was of that product. And I never did it, but had I done it, I don't think I would have been embarrassed. Or I wouldn't regret it to this day, because that's how much we all, and we'll get into that on your end too. We put everything we had into that thing. And at the end of the day,
you look back on it, and I think I put things into it that I didn't know I had. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what? How did this happen? Some of the stuff is like, why was I interviewing Slayer backstage? Yeah. And it ended up, getting, I don't know, 100,000 views on YouTube, and everyone hated it because they didn't like the way I was dressed. But and it's like these crazy situations, and you're like, this is happening to me, or I'm helping make it happen. It's not just happening to you.
Right.
In Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, it's not the middle of nowhere, but it's also not the media capital of the world.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it really is just very interesting, because I've been lucky to have some good jobs and good opportunities, and I think about that one a lot. I stay in touch with more people from that job than any other job. Mm-hmm. I made connections there that I'm still using today. It's just pretty interesting. It's kind of, I listened to your episode with Leslie, it's kind of the same, what is it about that place? You know what I mean? There was bad days and good days. It was a place of extremes in my mind.
Yeah.
It wasn't, there was never just what happened today? Oh, nothing. It's like, oh, it happened today. Somebody came in, their kid was running around, and, this other person came in, they were crazy, and this happened. And then I almost threw something at someone over this or that. And it was like it would have actually been interesting to do a reality show, on a place like that, because
I always said, for sure. I mean, Office kind of came out around the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe it wouldn't have been funny or amusing to anyone else.
Yeah.
I mean, for us, it was
just interesting. And then you factor in the nightlife segment to it, because a lot of us would then go out. Sometimes we kind of had to, you weren't really forced to, but there were events that you were pretty much expected to go to.
Encouraged, yeah.
Heavily encouraged. If you couldn't make it to the model of the year party, there had to be a pretty big reason.
Yeah. Not to mention we needed help too.
To make the event happen. You needed the manpower.
Yeah, we didn't have them. We had a marketing team.
Yeah.
We had a marketing team, which was at one point was me and interns.
Yeah. A person and a few interns. Yeah.
Yeah. But thankfully I was single for most of that time as the marketing person, because I went to literally everything. And that's not a job for a guy or a girl who has significant other, whether it's
settled down into any sense of normalcy.
Yeah,
but and I wasn't, it didn't matter if, I was impressed with the way those things would roll out. I could just show up. I didn't really have to do much. And oh, wow, this is cool. I'll have a few drinks, talk to a few people.
Yep.
Those were cool. And then there were other things that I was directly hands-on with, Weekender sessions, and Fixture was the other one.
Yeah,
those were a little more nerve-wracking.
Let's talk about those two things. I think those are two things that you kind of brought to that product that really were great things. I think I don't know how, if it was Sessions first and then Fixture, or
Fixture was first.
Fixture was first.
Yeah.
And Fixture was at a bar called Fuse,
right,
downtown Wilkes-Barre, which is in the Midtown Village.
Right.
I'm trying to think for a reference right now. I think I got where Katana was.
Katana was the best reference is another closed place.
It's now going to be a Geisinger 65 forward. There's also a place called Boozy Bees, but like I feel like Fuse, and shout out to Romo, not Tony Romo. I don't remember his first name though. His last name was Romanowski.
Ron? Was it Ron?
Ron, you're right. Ron. I think Ron. Yeah, but we called him Romo. But that bar was fucking cool.
It was cool, and that spot was cool. Like it was like
it was ahead of his time. Like it was just too far ahead of his time. Like
but I mean, speaking. Sometimes you could be too far ahead of your time because. So you're asking about fixture. So basically, I think the idea was I had done this story. It was one of the stories I was most proud of. It was just on like the indie rock scene of Scranton Wilkes-Barre. And I remember I had it like charted out, like I was outlining the story. I usually won't do that, but if it's like multiple pieces, I think I interviewed 10 different people I had no idea. I never met them. I was a nervous wreck. I went up to Test Pattern, which used to be across from the Bog. It was an all ages venue, and I talked to the like proprietors there, who were young people, some about my age at the time, but I was like 30. That's relatively young, and talked to them and. Talked to Brian Langan, who I had never met before, whose band at the time, the Swims, were a big part of that. A couple of record labels. There was Prison Jazz Records, and they put out like the OK Patty albums and this and that. And one of the things I do remember about that story is being told, the Bog is a bar in Scranton that has a lot of these bands play there. And one of the owners, he's a drummer in some of these bands, and he'd be a good guy to talk to. His name is Brian Craig. I'm like, okay. So somebody gave me his number, called him, left a message. He never called back. I'm like, who's this guy? Right, whatever. And some time passes, and he ended up being one of my best friends. And Brian, just passed away, I think about 2 years ago. And just one of the greatest people I've ever known. And like so many people will say that about him, and they're all telling the truth.
He was the best.
He was just such a great person. And I have his photo from the funeral, the little thing they hand out in the refrigerator, and but the thing, I was very proud of that story. And when it came out, and I remember going to the Bog, and there was a show was going to be across the street, a Test Pattern, one of those bands was going to play. Remember Alan came out to the Bog, and he was telling me, you would really like the Bog. He nailed that, because I really did. So Brian Craig is working. He's like, oh, that story was great, man. Have a beer, this and that. He's like, sorry I didn't call you back. And he's like, see that guy behind you? That's that guy you interviewed on the phone. He's the singer in the band, because I didn't know what he looked like. And that's how Brian was too. He was like a matchmaker of people. I don't mean just relationships, although he did do that too. I think people got married because he introduced them. But he'd be like, oh, that's John Popko. You should talk to him. He works at the Weekender. He works for 92.1. Like he would just make these things happen as he's behind the bar doing his job, talking to this guy. And I'm like, this place is cool. Like, I like this, and these people seem cool. And these bands seemed like they were doing something a little different, and they were all doing something a little different to what the Weekender had been maybe involved with. Because in addition to covering music, we were involved with shows, presenting shows, doing different live music things. There was a series at Montage. There was a series with, to mention Alan again, the Mountain, 102. 102, I think it was 3, the Mountain, that a weekly series. And like, what if we did like a series and spotlighted these types of bands, and even brought some in from out of the area sometimes, and this and that, and but didn't step on the toes of the Mountain Grown thing. And so that's what Fixture was. So we kind of came up, and you were probably part of it, deciding, all right, where are we going to have it? What are we going to do? And
I don't know if I was.
I was adamant that I wanted it. I was adamant that I wanted it to be in Wilkes-Barre, because I thought. So now I'm a smarter person. I'm not smarter. I'm more experienced, and I'm less ambitious. I didn't want to have it at the Bog, because I felt they were already doing that, and we would just be slapping our logo on it. They're going to sneeze. There you go.
All right. I did it in the elbow. I did it.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, socially distanced, of course.
I've been told for 9 months, and I held it in. Yeah. I didn't even sneeze.
You're supposed to do it on this part of the elbow. Like
I didn't even sneeze completely. So
I was told that like 10 years ago. It was my friend's girlfriend. Now wife's like, no, you didn't sneeze on your elbow. I'm like, I didn't what now? What? Why would I do that?
I want to make sure that it can transmit through the computer to you.
Yeah,
so
I don't think it can.
Looking up for you.
So the smart thing would have been to just have it there. But again, I said I wasn't smart. So I said, let's do in Wilkes-Barre what is happening in Scranton. And most people are like, what's the difference? But if you actually live there and did the job we did, you would see that there is a difference. Wilkes-Barre had more of the hard rock scene and venues,
right?
Kind of tailing on the Breaking Benjamin phenomenon. A lot of bands would fall under that genre, 97.9X, all that, which you could get in Scranton too. It's not exclusive to Wilkes-Barre. But Wilkes-Barre felt to me more of like a hard rock,
right?
Modern rock, as it was called, even though it was an outdated form of music, really. It's good at some point, maybe to an extent. Some of
it's stuff that you would put on a leather jacket.
You have to call it something. Active rock became, I think, what the radio stations would call it. Yeah. They maybe still do. But anyway, I was like, well, let's do Wilkes-Barre. And then someone came up with Fuse. And I remember being in there and like looking around, like, this could go there, that could go there. So we worked it out, and it was cool. And we brought in like, locally, we had Underground Saints, we had the Swims, and the Money Notes, which was a band that I loved. Cabinet, who is now Cabinet, still Cabinet. From out of town, we brought in this band called Illinois. That was so much fun. I don't know if you're at that one. Band out of the Philly area. Lewis and Clark opened up that one.
There was a band that you brought that I love, and I can't think of it now.
Was it Fooling April?
No.
The guy on piano?
No.
No?
What the hell was that band?
And they came in from out of town? Or were they?
Yeah, it was out of town group. I remember.
That might have been Illinois.
No.
No?
No. Shit.
I can't remember. I don't have any of this stuff.
Unless it's a band that I thought you had.
Yeah, could have been. So that was a lot of fun. And then, so that was a partnership basically. So it was The Weekender and Prairie Queen Records presents. Right. What that meant is me and Bill Orner. So Bill Orner, who now manages Billy Strings, who's a big deal. I think he lives in Austin, Texas, but he was a Scranton guy. So we worked on this, and he would work on getting sound, and he would book some of the acts, most of the acts. I would book some. And then he had a job that sent him to Connecticut and couldn't really come to any of these shows. So we had to scramble to get sound people, this and that, and the other thing. And then one thing led to another, and the bar was for sale. And we didn't want to have an event at a lame duck venue, right. Even though it was a cool spot. There was pretty much a parking lot there. Really no complaints. Sound wasn't perfect, but most places do not have really good sound. They didn't have their own PA system. So I was on a trip to Philly with Brian Craig to see one of his bands play, and we were at the Khyber in Philly. And Bill was there, and I was telling Bill my predicament. He goes, let's just do it at the Bog. Like, talk to Brian, let's just have it there. So we decided to do it on a temporary basis. And there was a whole situation internally at the Weekender, but for us to have it there consistently, they need to become a regular advertiser. And that just wasn't happening. And I tried to get the Bog and the Weekender. By the Weekender, I don't mean me. I mean people that handle the advertising side of things. And I tried to get them to just at least talk about it. And it was just, there was no bad blood or anything. I just couldn't broker that meeting or whatever. So we had to pull the plug. And the one I had to cancel, it was former members of Arcade Fire.
Oh, wow.
Who just got this review in Rolling Stone. And I had to email them and say, don't come, the show's off. And they never answered.
But I didn't know that.
I don't even forget the name of the band. But
if I remember the whole Bog meeting, that I don't know that I remember that happening. But like, again, I see both sides. Like, why would you want to take an event that's ultimately going to make a venue money because you're going to put people in the room, they're going to buy a beer, they're going to benefit, the advertising, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
for them not to have some kind of skin in the game. And I 100% get that.
The other thing that I would have never thought of besides that is something that maybe you or someone else there pointed out to me, is like, there are people that do advertise in the paper every week for years and years and years, and we're not having anything there. It was just, besides business, which is everything, it was the perfect fit.
Right. Absolutely.
That's not enough. That's not enough. And it was just a frustrating situation. So that was over. Now, Weekender Sessions, basically, I stole the idea of the NPR Tiny Desk concerts.
Sure.
Where by now people, I mean, it goes to show you how long it's been going, because if I stole it, that means it existed at the time. So, the NPR, they bring bands in and they play in the office. I'm like, well, why don't we do that? Okay. So again, got the okay to do it. Like, okay, great. Well, what are we going to need to happen? So the two main people on that, and as you see in most of these projects, it was a collaboration. It was usually me and another person, and it was Chris Hughes. Now, Chris, who didn't even work for the Weekender, he worked for the Times Leader, and he did a lot of video stuff and web stuff, and he was the guru of that for us. And he was great. Like he would help out with everything. And he's like, this is great. Like I could picture him. Like he was so yeah, let's do it.
Yep.
And so he would get together a camera crew, and he knew a guy that could do sound. And we had some cool bands come in. The first one we did was Underground Saints, because maybe you've experienced this too when you're launching a new project. Sometimes the first run you do with someone you know.
Sure.
Or a friend even, because if it doesn't work, you didn't fly, but they didn't come in from Philly or Harrisburg or something, or they're not strange, like they're going to deal with like the kinks you might have to work out. So we brought them in and it went great. Underground Saints. And the thing I remember the most is they did this cover song, How Soon Is Now, by the Smiths. So good. And the VP of digital at the time got nervous and made us take it down. And it's nowhere. Like it is nowhere, unless Chris Hughes has it somewhere in some like video tape or whatever. But he was worried we were going to get like sued by the Smiths or something. So maybe that was smart. I don't know. So that's what I remember about that. And we had some really cool. Mike Miz came in.
Let's go to that really quick. Like, so we had a VP of, what do you say, digital marketing, whatever.
Digital, yeah. Digital, I believe. Yeah.
And no involvement, right? So I mean, he or she, I forget who it was, but I don't forget. But
yeah, I remember who it was.
I know, I did too. But we were left to our own devices, really. Like they wanted us to do all these things. They wanted us to move things forward, and like, hey, print is not on its way out at the time, but like kind of like the writing's on the wall.
But digital's on the way in.
Digital is here and now, right?
Right.
Go do this.
Right.
Well, we need help. Oh, well, no.
Well, we don't do that. I mean, so I think that's a double-edged sword, because on one end, it's, if you're not going to do it, then I'm going to have to learn it. So like there was this guy that used to update the Weekender website every Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, whatever. And it would always be a friggin' mess. And I'd have to email him the fixes, and it wasn't really his main thing. And I'd be sitting there. And again, I used to be so like type A.
Oh yeah, dude, I remember you were.
Remember
like,
Wednesday mornings? I'm like this,
Well, I mean, it should be updated. You want to move forward.
Eventually, I said, I'm going to learn how to do this and just do it myself. What's the point of me telling someone else or asking them to do this? And to get him to do it, I was told he's not going to do it unless you CC the president of the company. I'm like, I don't want to get that guy involved because he's an asshole too. And so like these freaking people, and it's like, why don't I just learn? So again, Chris Hughes showed me like the basic HTML, like just now, like a teenager could do this, like embed a video. But at the time, it's like, how do I get the video actually into the article? It's like, you take the embed code. I'm like, oh, and how do I do this? And we had this horrible CMS system. It wasn't WordPress or anything. It was this janky thing put together by Solid Cactus. Might as well throw them under the bus too while we're out of here. Let me hold on while I freshen up my lap.
Wait, what are you pouring? Hold on.
This is my talking soda.
I gotta try.
It's a little.
I feel like I gotta feel like
when you have a,
hold on,
little Disaronno on the rocks.
Hold on.
Not a lot of rocks left, to be honest with you. Well, not a lot of Disaronno left either. That'll be that.
I feel like if I start, I have a Matt.
That's all she wrote.
Oh boy.
Do you have Drizzly in Wilkes-Barre? The Drizzly, it's called. It's they deliver booze to your house.
No.
They are so good that if I text now for another bottle list, they might get it while we're still talking. They might bring it here.
Let's test
but
it.
I'm not going to do that. That's it.
Drizzly,
I've had this like 5 years. If any booze in my house that's not beer will last years.
Yeah, I'm the same way, man. Like
but this just a little bit. I like, it's nice Thursday night.
I'm in my bar. This is my bar in the back.
So it's beautiful. It's nice.
I have so many bottles of booze that are in here that I'm not a big liquor guy.
Yeah, and if someone buys me, like I had a friend of mine come up for my birthday years ago when I lived in Scranton, and he bought me a bottle of rum, and I'm such a moron that I moved it. So I'm like, oh, thanks. I'm like, I don't really drink rum. I used to drink rum and Coke like in the olden times, and so I have this bottle of rum, and it was so funny. Anytime I moved, I brought it with me because it was a gift. I didn't want to throw it out. So like I moved to like New York. I'm like, well, we got to take that. And then I moved. I'm like, I eventually threw it out. So Dave, if you're out there, sorry, I never drank it. I had like a couple of whacks off of it one night.
Dave, he hates
I was probably mad about something that happened at the weekend. I went home. I'm like,
this is it. We're done.
But the digital thing, newspapers in general thought the internet was like some crazy fad.
Well,
and then when they did get on board, they paid lip service to it and said, we're going to do this, and we're the wave of the future, digital this, digital that. Well, who's going to do it? Intern. I remember this story where somebody, might have been you, sold a package for the Times Leader, a digital package to the Penguins, Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins.
I don't know if that was me.
And the digital team of the Times Leader never executed it. Like the thing never happened. So like you said, you had all those meetings, I remember, and like, oh, we got to go meet with digital. It's like, you got to sell this, you got to sell that. And then you would sell it. And I guess now they would call it like a deliverable.
Yeah.
That it was never.
Yeah. That was
the struggle. And the thing I wish I learned back then is just to stay in your lane. Like right now at work, I stay in my lane. I told my wife the other day, I said, my lane gets smaller every year on purpose. I said, I'm going to bike lane now. I said, if something is not in my job, I'm like, I didn't see that, because when you step to the bad news, this is not a good lesson for like young people, but in most cases, when I saw something that I knew was not being done properly or I could help with, and I stepped in to help, usually that would end up badly.
Yeah.
Because I would get too close to it and get like burned by it, or you do a good job on it and someone's like, well, why don't you do this then? Why don't you do that? The next thing you know, you're coming home frazzled. I mean, that job, it took me a while to like recover from it in a way. I couldn't look at the paper for a couple of years. I couldn't look at it.
Oh, you're saying after
I didn't want to see it. Yeah, I didn't want to look at it because it was seeing your ex-girlfriend out with another guy or something. When you see, because you talk about getting the tattoo. I mean, it sounds insane.
It does. But, so let's
it's just the way it worked for us.
Let's get into that because I've always said when I left I left on my own accord. I think your story is a little different. But
I left a Honda Accord. I think. No, it was actually a CRV.
CRV, yeah. But I left on my own accord, and I still felt like it was the girlfriend who cheated on you.
Well, sometimes when you leave on your own accord, it's not necessarily 100% on your own accord.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sometimes things are put into play that put you in a position where you have no choice but to leave.
So all these things happen. You're trying to move things. You're trying to move things forward. You're trying to advance the product in a digital fashion. You're trying to you're week in, week out, every week, prints on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Doing sessions, doing fixture, like just kind of putting your stamp on all this. And then come, I think 2011 is when you.
Right around Valentine's Day. It actually was. I do remember
so you guys
that.
broke up on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, right beforehand. Because I remember there was a jazz festival coming to Wilkes-Barre, and that was the last cover story. And so basically, here's what happened. So there's the general burnout of being at a job for 4 years. Now, some people have 4 years. What are you complaining about? But it's just this after that and that after this. When the fixture thing fell apart, like that was like my pet thing. And when that wasn't there anymore, that probably in retrospect was like one step toward the door, that I couldn't make that thing continue.
Okay.
So, one step toward leaving, but maybe not. And, it's like, well, something else will come along. The sessions thing was cool. That was fun. What was basically happening is this is strange. It's hard to explain, but it was my understanding that the president of the company wanted some changes made to the content side of the Weekender. So meetings were being held with the general manager of the Weekender, who was also the vice president of the Times Leader, and our graphic designer of the Weekender. And they'd come back to the office. General manager would go in her office, wouldn't say anything. And then sometimes the graphic designer would be like, oh, the president guy, he said he really wants shorter stories in the paper, the Weekender. He wants them to be, whatever, 350 words. I said, well, is someone going to tell me that? It's like, I know you're telling me now, but I can't really act on like leaks from a meeting. This is basically a leak.
You should have been in that meeting.
Yeah. So like, either I should have been in that meeting and I wasn't going to fight these things. I know I do understand like hierarchy, like if I don't like that, then I should try to become president of the company or, and these opportunities, these things happen. You can either quit, keep your mouth shut and be a good soldier or start your own damn thing, but there's really no way to like do all those things, So I was like, this is strange. And one of the last straws for me, and this sounds like such a small thing, but there was a story that was pitched in a meeting. This is such a small thing. It sounds so petty, but I am half Italian.
It is what it is.
Yeah. There was a guitar was going to be auctioned off to benefit something. I forgot what it was. It was going to be signed by members of Breaking Benjamin and maybe even some other people. And it was pitched as a story. And I said, a whole story on just a signed guitar? I said, why don't we just get a nice photo? I'll get all the information and write up, a big caption and I'll talk, who it is. I was like, okay, yeah, do that. So they gave me the information. And the contact person was Mark Klepowski's dad. So Mark Breaking Benjamin.
Right.
And I emailed him. He's like, oh, we're so happy you're going to cover this. I said, yeah, we're doing a photo. Like I let him know. This is not like, he's like, oh, whatever. So I put that together, everything. So Wednesday rolls around, the paper's out, and you get to your desk, and you guys are making sure all the it's the excitement of seeing it's funny, like after all those years, it was still exciting to grab that paper.
Oh yeah.
In the morning, and like, okay, that looks cool. Like even though you knew what was going to be in there, it was still like, now it's out. It was exciting to see your work. And
I mean, for me, it was the first time I was seeing your work too, though, because I checked my stuff and
well, yeah, because you guys were like, oh, I didn't know you had an interview with like Coheed and Cambria or whatever, which I didn't. Yeah. That fell through, but it just came into my head. We're supposed to, and then the show sold out. I'm like, oh, they're focusing on rehearsal now. They're not really great show. Tink stuff. No, it was Hardware Bar actually at the time. Coheed and Cambria.
I hate that band.
Fantastic.
That's fine.
You hate them? Oh, yeah. It was good. It's funny that I mentioned that you would point out that thing. So,
I hate the vocals. It's no good.
I could see that. See, I've been listening to Rush my whole life, so I'm already on board to hear that. So, you guys are like, oh, this ad was supposed to be here. This guy's going to call. He's going to be mad. I'm like, oh, that looks good. Oh, this is good. What happened here? So I'm flipping through, and I saw the thing, the guitar thing. This guitar will be auctioned off with the photo. I turned a few pages, and I thought it was a misprint. I thought it was the same thing again, but somebody had the graphics designer dummy up something that looked like a story, but it was basically the same thing I did. And one didn't know. I'm like, so what you needed to tell me is, Mike, no, the photo's not enough. You have to do a full story on this. Okay, you're the boss. I'm either going to do it or I'm going to quit. I wouldn't have quit over that. But when I saw that, like, now I'm not even in the loop about editorial content as the editor of the paper. I'm like, well, then they probably need to either not have an editor or a different editor. I've been here 4 years. What else can I do? I felt like I've accomplished some things for myself. we're all want to do things for ourselves. I've done some things that are going to help me in my career, and I don't want to be here. I don't want to be miserable. I don't want to make other people miserable, which I already was. I was coming home and like I was horrible to be around. I didn't even want to be around myself. If that, it was rough, and it was just like F this, So I don't even know when that happened. It might have been months, but eventually, I don't know. One day, I'm like, that's it. So I put in like a 6-week notice. Might have been 8 weeks even. It's like, hey, not hey. I didn't say hey. Thank you again for hiring me and giving me the opportunity for doing this. It's been great to be part of this team. I feel it's in my best interest and the best interest paper. I'll step down. I'm willing to stay on until whatever that date was to help with the transition. Even if you want me to be part of the finding of a new editor, I would love to do that. I don't want any hard feelings. And I didn't get a response. The boss was in Florida at the time, and I didn't know what was going on. So eventually, a couple days passed, and I got called in, and I was told, today's your last day. And I said, what do you mean? Am I being fired? And they said, today's the last day. You need to go speak to HR. So, okay. So then I went down to HR, and HR told me, I was being terminated. And I said, what's the reason? And the HR woman said, the official reason is there's no reason. I said, can I get that in writing? And she said, no. And I will also add that she cried during the process, the HR woman, because she said, I don't know why they're doing this to you. And, I think, again, to speculate, I think it might have been a power move. And if I was disgruntled, not if I was disgruntled, as a disgruntled person, they probably don't want that around. I mean, I know like if someone that has clients, like an advertising person, if you give your notice, they're going to escort you out of the building because you could spend your next 2 weeks on the phone like, hey, Bob from whatever bar, I'm going over to this other company or, this radio station, whatever. I'll contact you there. And then you could bring your account over there. I wasn't going to do that, but maybe they thought I would spread some like bad blood. So like, it was to pack up the desk. HR person had to stand there as I packed everything up, and people are like, "What's going on?" I'm like, so yeah, it was not a good way to end things, and it was, I would say, it was actually kind of traumatic when you put that much into something and to have it end that way. And I had a part in the way it ended as well. I could have been more mature on the way I handled things. I could have been less excitable. I think I would handle it better now, but I think I did learn a lot from it.
Yeah.
I was either, if I had a wife and kids and all that, I probably would have just swallowed the shit basically. But like, I felt if I stayed, I would lose respect for myself, because if you're now, what am I even here for?
And how old were you then?
If you hire me as the offensive coordinator, and there's some other guy calling the plays, and I'm like, why did we run a draw on third down? I didn't know anything about that. Like, then why do you have me as an offensive coordinator? How old was I? I was, let's see.
31?
34.
How old are you now?
34. So I came in at 30 and left at 34, basically. Yeah. I just turned 34. So I 34 in January. Wow. So that's coming up on 10 years in a few months. So, I mean, it not sounds 15, like... but. Yeah, no, nothing is 15. But I mean, it's if actually to talk about it is kind of strange, because it sounds like oh, woe is me, and like, oh, my life is horrible. No, it was overall like the overhead view of the thing. Macro versus micro. Macro is great experience. Met people, wouldn't be having this conversation right now. Made so many friends, learned so many things, so many great experiences. But, most newspapers are mismanaged. Yeah. There's a reason it's a dying medium. Most of them are not properly run. And, what do I know? I've never run one. Maybe if they put me in charge, it would have went out of business sooner. Or I don't know if it's in business or nobody knows. I guess who knows? But
I feel like what I'm doing right now is probably giving them more publicity than they've given themselves in the past 2 years.
That's nuts and true. Probably.
Yeah. I know that they stopped printing physical copies before the pandemic. And I think the pandemic kind of expedited the process of not having it.
And I think that happened with a lot of businesses that were kind of on their last leg, and then they were teetering, and then the pandemic was...
Maybe they caused the pandemic to under the radar go out of, print.
Alex Jones agrees with you.
I'm kidding.
Here's what you need to know. Go down to Market Street and
Weekender did not start the pandemic.
I am not part of this comment. It's not me that said that. They probably couldn't even afford a lawyer to sue you at this point.
Could they sue me?
Sue me.
No, could they sue me?
Sure, why not? You just slandered them.
Did I?
You said they caused the worst pandemic in the history of the world.
I'm joking.
I think that's probably a problem.
Yeah,
although it'd be more publicity than they've had in years.
Exactly.
So it's like, hey, at least we caused coronavirus.
Exactly. I don't know why we got on that topic.
No, I mean, and here's the thing I was thinking about too before we had this talk. The one thing that's sad is to know that what I did there disappeared and has absolutely no, like literally everything was wiped off the archives, the internet. So like if I interviewed like some people that I was pretty pleased with and lucky and fortunate to, I got nothing.
Well, that's even beyond. That's not so only far that, beyond you though. Like that's
beyond me. But the things I did, it's like it had no impact.
Right.
Like,
but
a few years later, they were gone. It was like I was never there.
Yeah, but you did great things. Like Nikki Mascali did great things. Like there's a lot of great things that happened at that paper that are gone.
But what's supposed to happen is that's supposed to be carried on to the next thing. Like people before me did great things. And even though I changed some things, I wouldn't have even been in that position if the people before me didn't do what they did. Right. You know what I mean? And like the podcasts we started then that weren't really true podcasts really, but we did the weekly dose. And then we had that's the one that Nikki and I did. That was a lot of fun.
Well, no, you guys, and I tell you this before, I told you before.
And that was the marketing one. I forget what it was called.
Party Favors.
Yeah, that was a great name too.
Those were ahead of its time. Like I think as people and as a product, we were ahead of the times, 100%, right? Because you see like all these videos being done and content is king. And
I see some of this stuff and I'm like, we did this like 13.
We did, but guess what? And we did it on a shitty fucking camera.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I have that when I left.
We didn't know what we were doing. We just did it.
No, but we did it. But like imagine if we had some more support behind us with those.
Well, it goes to the thing. These things, a lot of them, they didn't have any sponsorship. They had no money coming in. And when you're the person that decides the budgeting, if someone decided to give us a budget for that, they probably would have gotten fired. So that's the thing you don't really, when I'm there, I had the blinders on and I'm like, we need this for this. Why can't we get a sponsor for sessions? And why, this is a great product. But someone else is like, there's other things we got to worry about, So like, in the holistic or whatever you want to say, the whole thing, the way the whole company goes around it, maybe they were right not to back it. I don't know. But I know I wanted them to. And, it's tough. But like I sent you an article the other day. It was about like, it was about streaming, video streaming. Mm-hmm. And there was some quote in there by some Wall Street analyst or something that follows like the digital space saying that most innovation does not come within major like corporately held companies. But imagine all the hoops you have to jump through. Like imagine if you were working at Google and you wanted to start some project or whatever. Imagine the meetings and the this and that. But if you want to do something right now, you just do it.
Yeah.
But if you want to light your bar on fire right now, I mean, you can do it, but you're not going to have the backing to have it, make an impact. So, and that's why I think it's great that people are doing projects like this that you're doing, and it's very professional. I mean, the fact that it's even on Spotify just looked so cool to me today. I took a picture of it and sent it.
Yeah, thank you.
It's so like, it's just that's the same Spotify I was on to listen to like Iron Maiden or whatever, like a couple of hours ago. And there's the Popko Project. That is so cool.
I have my logo next to Joe Rogan's, and I'm like,
really?
Wow. I mean, yeah, it's like most recently listened to or whatever it is, or your top.
But the fact that it's even there,
but yeah, just
the fact to even be in that same universe.
Any idiot can put it on Spotify. Like it's not a big deal, but it's still just
any idiot can, cool. But not any idiot will.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like it's like any idiot can record an album, But like, it's. I think it's kind of cool. And the thing is, because anyone could do it, the good thing is anyone can now. The platform is there. The problem is now that it's harder to stand out because there's just so much.
Yeah.
The same thing in music. I read something like, if you put a song on Spotify, the odds of someone finding it, it's like the needle in the haystack kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you really got to do something to stand out. And it's hard to do something to stand out without having a gimmick or like making a jackass of yourself.
Or having an investor or financial backer.
Or having some sort of investor financial backer. But even look at the sports people that are popular now in media are the hot take guys. It's not like the in-depth, let's talk about, it's like, I heard that LeBron changed this, that, and then it's a tweet war and this and that. Yeah. It's like, the Barstool model, no offense, it's what they're doing. Obviously, it's very successful and a lot of it's cool.
Did you see what he did today?
No, did he eat pizza in Pennsylvania again?
No,
that's something he gets to do and I don't.
No, he just did like a Barstool fund or something. I literally just watched it before we got on this call. Shame on me for not remembering it, but he's basically donating $500,000 to like local restaurants that, to me, it's like, it's not a lot of money. I think that'll be gone really quick.
But it's 500,000 more.
At least he's doing something. The Barstool Fund is what it's called. His film guy or videographer that does the pizza stuff. His dad owns a pizza place in New York somewhere. So he's helping them first. But it's like you have to be open and still providing employment to your employees in order to get funded. But someone's like, I'll put your money where your mouth is. And he's like, all right, fine, fuck you, I'll do it. Which is neat.
You could. That's great.
So sorry off topic there, but
no, because I was kind of bashing the whole like hot take thing, but people's attention spans are shorter too, and you have to be able to grab them with sometimes something like salacious or whatever. That even going back to like model of the week, my hope was that a lot of people, if they picked up the paper just to look at the model, that then maybe they would turn the page. You're working backwards in the paper because that
was the goal. That was the goal.
You draw them in with that, or draw them in with the Coors Light. Here's who's whatever Coors Live. To see that dwindle was also very depressing. And you could say that the Coors Live was the thing that was just a list of what music was at every bar in the area, pretty much.
Yeah,
and it took up like a page.
Oh yeah,
and then it got to the point there was like 4 things in there, and it was like.
That
shows the way things changed.
It was once at the point where the font size was almost unreadable because there was so many.
Because there's so much. There was so much going on.
You're older than I am, so not by much, but like there were venues that were around before my time that were closed by the time I turned 21. And
so when we were there, that's a good point, because when we were working there, we were hearing about how everything's closing.
Yeah.
We thought those were the bad days.
Yeah.
And we had a full page of places where you could go see music.
Yeah.
And now it got smaller and smaller and smaller. I used to think of it this way, and I'm not a musician, but how many places actually have a PA system? And it got to the point where I think in Luzerne County, it was maybe just the Jazz Cafe, where a place where a band could play without bringing
plug
a sound
and play.
system.
Yeah.
And there was a point where you had, in our day, you had nightcaps, you had Jazz Cafe, you had the Voodoo, or whatever various names that went through over the years, Blues Brothers West and so forth. You had at least a good 5. And then in Scranton, you would have Tinks, and there's a place called Blue Street. I don't even know if they had sound, but they were kind of like a Jazz Cafe-esque kind of place. And then it got to the point, like, where are you even going to play? It's another thing. It's amazing so many bands came out of the area when there was, I don't know if that wave is going to happen again, because the last big wave of bands that became big nationally, Tigers Jaw, Mandingers, Title Fly, that crew,
yeah,
when they kind of graduated from the Northeastern PA. They stopped being just a local band. They became beyond that. There were still places for them to play to get to that point, and the one they will always talk about heavily is Cafe Metropolis.
Right.
So has a band become really big from Northeast PA since Cafe Metropolis closed? I mean, Cabinet became big, and they weren't a cafe, they weren't a Metro band. They were a jazz cafe band. But that era, like, you know, has anyone gotten to that level where like Tiger's Jaw, Benzigers, these bands that could regularly play the larger venues in New York and like the larger like club venues? If there's been one, I can't think of it.
It's weird because I feel like, you know, when the recession hit in like 2008-ish, like that's when really the bars kind of switched gears.
Yeah.
They started using DJs a lot.
Yeah.
And then
you could look at weddings too. Weddings went in that direction too, from live bands to DJs.
And I just feel like, I mean, within the last 3-4 years, things kind of started moving back towards live entertainment being bands.
Yeah.
But to what you're saying, like what bands come out of this area, you know, on the level of, you know, those names. I mean, you have University Drive, who went on tour with Cole, which is pretty neat. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, I mean, I don't know that really.
And it doesn't mean there's less talent, but also, you know, in some ways there might be less. If you know you don't have anywhere to play, then maybe you're not even going to start a band. So like, if you're a young band 7 years ago and you play like bluegrass type music, you might be inspired and say, Cabinet they're out playing these major festivals, and you know, we could be that. We could work our way up to headlining the Jazz Cafe and this and that. But if that disappears for you as an opportunity, you know what I mean? It's like, would you major in something in school if you knew there were no jobs in that field? It's like journalism over here. I got to figure out how to retire at my age at some point. But if you are like a Tigers, like all those bands, they had someone to look up to. And so the next wave would be looking up to, because even for the blog, I'll interview people and like, I grew up as a young kid listening to the Benzigers, and that makes me feel really old.
Right.
But everything builds off the previous, I don't know if it's a generation or half a generation, you know, like a half a step younger or older. Yeah. But if your goal was to play Metro, and it's not there anymore, or Test Pattern, and it's not there anymore, or the Vintage Theater in Scranton, it's not there anymore, then what's your goal? Where are you going to play? I mean, I know there's some other places now. There's, what's the place in Scranton that does, there's a V-Spot and there's the other one.
Stage West, right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different world right now. I mean, it's going to, I'm curious to see how things are going to kind of shake out once coronavirus subsides, or, you know, we get the vaccine and we.
I mean, I think there's going to be a heavy reset on the way things are. I mean, even if things get back to normal, like as far as society, I think the business is going to change a lot. It really is. Honestly,
I don't think we've seen, and I'm speaking right now just for like the area that I live in, which is Northeastern Pennsylvania. I don't think we've seen the ultimate collapse of the local businesses here that will eventually close because of this. I think that maybe a handful have closed, or that as at least have been reported has closed. But I think, you know,
it's happening here too. I mean, there are restaurants in New York, like legendary restaurants, that are done.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. I mean, like New York City has been the mecca, like for business, for entertainment, all these things over the years. It's a ghost town right now. Like, what are you seeing right now while you're there? I mean, what are you seeing?
It's so first of all, where I live is I'm in Manhattan, but it's not like I'm not near like Times Square. I'm not near where there's like tourists and this and that. But it is an area where people live, you know, and people will come to go to restaurants and this and that. So before coronavirus, you would step out of the apartment in the morning on like a Saturday, and there'd be a lot of people walking by, sightseeing, and a lot of shops, and, just like any larger town. When COVID first hit, my first reaction was it looked like a movie set of New York. I went for a walk, and I don't even know where I was going. It might have been just a walk to just go out into the world. And there was boarded up buildings, because there was the protests going on too.
Right.
So between the buildings being boarded up in preparation of protests and COVID, I was walking down the street and like you could hear everything. You could hear if there was a guy coming by like a delivery guy on his bike, you could hear the wheels spinning. You could hear him talking on his phone. If a car came by and they had the window down, you could hear their conversation. It's almost like when you watch sports now and you could hear them curse and like you could hear every little thing because there's no crowd. It was like that. And it was like, I felt like I was waking up after like a war and stepping out and like, okay, I survived. Let's see what's going on here. It was very strange. Since then there was like this thing where people were like, screw it, and walking around without masks and like, or the mask under the chin, stupid jerks with the stupid thing. And some of that. And then now it's like, I think in between, you don't see a lot of nonsense. I mean, we're fortunate to live in a nice neighborhood. There's a park nearby right on the Hudson River. There was a whale in that river like a couple of weeks ago, which is amazing too. Humpback whale. But it's kind of strange. It's still New York. It reminds me of if you went to a large college and if you stayed for the summer to take classes.
I gotcha.
It's still just as big, but with
less people.
1% of the people. And then a lot of people have just frankly moved out of the city too. It's not that there's less tourists and less people out and about.
Yeah. They're like, fuck this, I'm out.
There's stories about people leaving. Yep. I mean, we moved into a nicer apartment, I think partially because of that, because we found a deal that was half decent. It's still astronomically, ridiculously expensive to live here, but it's where a lot of the jobs are. And there's so many wonderful things to do here. I love it. I always loved coming here. My dad, who passed a few years ago, used to take me to New York to Yankee games and museums, and it was always like kind of in my blood that it's not like I had a dream to live there, but I knew I liked it. There's a certain excitement. Like even when you step out in the morning, you're like, all right, this is cool, and if you like history, you see, like, I didn't know that this street was named after that guy that did this thing, That's like any town. Like in Wilkes-Barre, everything is named after something or whatever. But here it's just on a different level.
Right.
But it's just like, not to be selfish, but you're like, if you really like a certain place, don't get too attached right now because it might not be there in a few months.
Yeah.
A restaurant, some of the best restaurants in the world and music venues, like City Winery. I don't know if you've ever been to City Winery. They're kind of a chain now, like kind of like Hard Rock Cafe, where various cities have them. And they were getting ready to move into their new place, doing the construction, like down the street from here, pretty much. And they were doing that when COVID hit.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a thing, not to get too off the beaten path. There was a thing on NBC last night. It was the Christmas Spectacular with the Rockettes at Radio City. It's the thing my dad took me to when I was 10 years old. So I try to go back every few years. And it's like this Christmas story, and there's a nativity scene, and there's, it's like basically for kids, but like it makes you a kid at heart if you love Christmas. And I was watching this thing, and even I said to my wife, the Rockettes, the dancers that do the kick line thing. I said, imagine if your dream was to be in the Rockettes and you tried out and you finally made it this year when they're not having it, when they're not having their keynote event. The kids not having graduations. But it's just, the Thanksgiving parade. New York and Christmas are like kind of it didn't start here, obviously.
No, New Year's Eve. Think about that. Like, that's not going to be.
Okay, so now you finally came up with something good about coronavirus, that there's not going to be the New Year's Eve thing and Christmas. If people come to town wearing diapers to go to this thing, then it's not a good thing.
You're right.
I wouldn't be caught dead. And it's funny when you live here, people are like, oh, are you going to the New Year's thing? It's like, why? If someone made me, like if I was arrested and they said, you have to go to this. Yeah. But even if you go, that's when it's really eerie. I don't think I've been like to Times Square, but it's like,
I've seen video, just
these movies, like, these movies where like almost like an Armageddon type of situation where it's like the day after the bomb went off or everyone died or whatever, but the screens are still flashing and the billboards and everything. I mean, because the thing is, I mean, you've been to New York. When you walk around Times Square in the middle of the night, it looks like the sun is out.
Yep.
It's because there's so much, and it's like to have that, but no people.
Right.
Or just a few people. It's really freaky. I mean, what's it like there? I mean, if you're, what's downtown Wilkes-Barre like compared to what it's usually like? Is it less of an extreme?
It's fine. I mean,
just what it was. It looks like it usually was.
I don't get down to downtown Wilkes-Barre often. I actually was there just a week or two ago. I went down to Loyalty Barbershop in Wilkes-Barre. It was bizarre, actually. I mean, there was all these kids riding these Razor scooters around town. Like, I'm like, what is going on down here? But
it's like Mad Max post-apocalypse.
It was bizarre. Like, I'm like, why are there 10 kids riding Razor scooters and there's just like people walking around like zombies? Like, I'm like, is this what Wilkes-Barre has turned into?
Well, the zombie thing is nothing new. Like, I remember when I used to walk to lunch.
It just felt like more. But
how's the square? Did they do that? I'm sure they did the square up for Christmas, right?
There are there's like a Christmas like different what do you call it? Like almost like huts for different businesses.
Kiosks.
Yeah. But what I wanted to say was the Dunkin' Donuts in downtown Wilkes-Barre is closed.
Like permanently?
Yes, I think it's.
Oh wow!
So which is scary. Now, granted, it wasn't a location with a drive-through, so that had.
Yeah, but it was still a pretty heavily foot traffic there. Yeah.
Yeah,
think, right?
But also like you got to pay to park, and parking is.
No one's going to pay to park at a Dunkin' Donuts.
I think it's $2.50 an hour or $2 an hour. It's
that's ridiculous.
Insane.
That's like adding $2.50 to your chat.
So I parked at Loyalty. I put in a quarter. It was 8 minutes. Put in a second quarter, thinking, all right, this will get me 16 minutes. 2 quarters got me 15 minutes. I'm like, how does this work? Usually when you pay more, you get more. Like, or you get more. It's like if I pay, I shouldn't get less minutes. I should get more minutes. What the fuck's going on here? But so the Dunkin' Donuts is closing. Like, so there's a lot going against it. But it's been there for a long time. And Dunkin' Donuts, as you know, probably has more money than God.
It was kind of a nice Dunkin' Donuts too. At least the last time I was in there.
Yeah, but I mean,
I heard there was a certain element that would be.
Yeah, it's just
element.
Weird. But so that's the situation right now, which is
weird. That's not. I mean, the major change. I mean,
but outside of that, I mean, I don't go out much. I go to work. I come home. I'll go to the store when we have to. Sometimes we get delivery or curbside pickup for groceries. Like I'm not scared of the virus.
Right.
Now I wear the mask and I do all the things you're supposed to do. I'm not scared of it, but like if I can avoid it, I will.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you could have the groceries delivered and it's not going to cost much more money, or you could go to the store and risk maybe something happening, why would you risk it?
Yeah. So
that's
to answer your question. I haven't been out to bars, so I couldn't tell you what that looks like. Obviously now in PA, indoor dining is shut. So any bar that was doing...
it's a crazy thing. I would give anything to be in a bar and just like somebody that I don't know, like bumping into me and me getting mad at them for it. And like, just like I miss like the nonsense of life. Like just the general bullshit. Like I still take the subway once in a while for like doctor's appointments and stuff. And I get to see the crazy people and the whack jobs and whatnot. And, but it definitely feels like it probably. I mean, it's got to be the strangest time in this country probably since the World War II. Because I was thinking about like, so I didn't live here during 9/11, but I was thinking about like 9/11 was kind of a concentrated attack, and it was over. I mean, there could have been a follow-up attack, but it wasn't like. I mean, I don't know if people walked around for like months thinking more planes are going to fly and other buildings.
Yeah.
You know, it affects people, destroyed lives. It's a horrible thing. But this thing is just more widespread. Like everyone knows someone that either has had COVID, died from COVID, lost their job because of COVID. And
well, that's what I mean. Everyone was saying like, "Oh, this is similar to 9/11." I'm like, this is not similar.
I mean, it's a disaster.
I appreciate the comparison and the loss of life and how terrible it was, because it was obviously terrible.
National,
but I mean, this is a worldwide thing.
And 9/11 wasn't contagious,
right? But like,
you know what I mean?
9/11 was focused on
and it hit three towns. It hit three towns.
Different towns, but like obviously was.
This is hitting there's no town that's not affected by it.
And
so it's like a bunch of mini 9/11s.
That brought us together. 9/11 brought us together because we had a common enemy.
And this is driving us apart.
Right. We had a common enemy that we knew what they were. We knew who they were. So we're like,
the Red Sox.
Yeah. Let's what?
The common enemy was the Red Sox. No, I follow you.
No, it wasn't that. It was terrorists. So
you say tomato, I say tomato.
But so we had an enemy that we knew they were like. Yeah,
and no one really disagreed about it. There was some
But now it's like we can't see it. We're being told to stay away from our neighbors, our families.
And there's not an easy thing to say it was this guy's fault or this.
You never know.
This problem's fault. And also, like, I think with 9/11, there were conspiracy theories like, oh, it didn't really happen. But
there's those this day.
Nobody really, they didn't go anywhere. Those theories didn't have legs. Yeah. That's like saying school shootings didn't happen. But now conspiracy theories I was at the physical therapist the other day for my foot. This is a minor problem, but two of the physical therapists, so they're talking to each other, and I'm the only patient at the time. Are you going to get the vaccine? I don't know. I think I'm going to wait. And I'm like, my face is down because they're working on my foot. And I'm like,
well, Bill Gates is putting the microchip in there, the tracking chip.
Good. These same people have had this is a tracking chip. You've had it your whole life.
Exactly. Dude, it's so funny. I've run into people who have said like, oh, I don't want to use the Roundup for the weeds in the yard because, they're saying it causes this, it causes that, and it smells bad, blah, blah, blah. Same person. Outside. Cigarette breaks. All day long.
Mm-hmm.
People are funny, man. People are funny.
People don't realize what hypocrites they are. I'm sure we all do it. We all say things that don't add up.
And here we are.
Probably do it all day.
Here we are.
Yeah, yeah, but we know what this is. Like, if you drink like a fish for 30 years and then they tell you something happened, you're like, yeah, of course it did. You got problems with your liver or something. But the conspiracies, it's just, why would Bill Gates? Bill Gates is retired. He's running a foundation. He doesn't even work for Microsoft anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe he's on the board or something. I don't know. And so he wants to control everyone with a microchip. I mean, it's like the QAnon. That's my favorite. The QAnon is the best. The Satan worshiping, drinking the blood of babies. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, sign me up for that. Yeah.
Well, what I do if you can do anything for me, Mike, I want you to get the religious guys trying to push out COVID and
oh my God,
I want
COVID-19.
Yeah,
that guy.
COVID-19.
Kenneth Copeland.
Not that guy. I want
Kenneth Copeland. You want the sidekick?
And he's a millionaire.
Praise Jesus. Praise Jesus.
That guy's a millionaire. I want his sidekick. The guy.
His sidekick is awesome. He's the Ed McMahon of the religious world.
He looks like every moment of his life he's going to just break out laughing.
How could you not?
Somehow he's able to keep it together.
You should have him as your guy.
I want to talk to him.
You should have him on every podcast. In the bottom corner, and everything you say, he just goes, "That's right." Praise Jesus.
For anyone listening, Mike and I are doing the hand,
Jesus
the praising,
Kenneth Copeland, the heavy metal remix.
Oh, it's brilliant. I mean, I hate the internet and I love the internet.
And then he blows.
Yeah,
I blow the wind of God. That guy, Kenneth Copeland. Did you see the one where he's the woman's interviewing him in front of his car?
No.
And he's like, "Oh, beautiful!" Like he's calling her, and he's leaning in the eyes.
Oh, jeez.
He's a national treasure.
He's a national
loaded.
Treasure.
Of course he is.
Oh my God, it's
those guys have. I mean, me and my dad used to talk about starting some sort of crazy church because it's like you're tax exempt.
Right. And people just follow you for no reason. They don't even need to make sense, and they'll still follow you, right?
Oh, the less sense, the better. If you do make sense, you probably go out of business. If you could find a way to capitalize on the stupidity of the public, I mean, I really, in some ways, I really don't fault you for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you get people to believe that this or that, and they donate money to you, like you're just taking what's out there. If they don't give it to you, they're going to give it to some other fake cause.
They are.
Why not?
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Why not you?
Well, Mike, really quick. We talked about pre-weekender. We talked about weekender. Yeah. We talked about post-weekender. We talked about where you currently are today.
Right.
We did not talk about the fact that you got married this year.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think you rescheduled it twice and then eventually canceled it.
Yeah, I almost can't remember at this point. But we were supposed to get married actually in Wilkes-Barre, and but Audrey and I we got married in New York at people say you go down to the courthouse. It's a government building. It's not technically a courthouse. It's I forget what it is. It's like one of those buildings you see on SVU, and you stand in line and you go in and
next.
Pretty much. But it was nice. They take you into a chapel, and But the thing that I thought was funny is like the woman that do you take this better or worse and all that business, and then as soon as you both say yes, she goes like this, and it was like so. I'm like it was so efficient.
Hey.
Yeah, but so we did that in case stuff was going to shut down.
Sure.
Which it did. But we were going to have our wedding in Wilkes-Barre. And this has happened to so many people.
I know.
Our friend Matt Morgus was supposed to have a nice wedding in Philly.
Well, I wasn't invited to his wedding, so fuck Matt Morgus. Fuck you, Matt Morgus.
We were supposed to have our wedding at a place that maybe doesn't exist anymore. I don't know what's going on.
I know. I was excited. You invited me. I was like, yes, it's, like my wife and I, we have a kid. So it's like,
you said you're going to be able to make it. And like, this is great. People,
I know. I was going to see you in person.
And then this happens. But you know what? The thing is like, coronavirus is killing people, and it hasn't killed me, and it hasn't killed anyone in my family. And maybe by the time you put this up, maybe maybe I'll be dead from it. Who knows? I mean, it's crazy. But it's one of those things. Somebody taught me once too, like, I was like, I feel bad feeling bad about something in my life because other people have it worse. And they said, well, just because other people have it worse doesn't mean you can't feel bad about something going on. So it's okay to be disappointed that
you
didn't have a wedding, even though that's nothing compared to, you're reading these people dying alone that can't see their families in the hospital. And then there was a thing on CNN yesterday, this doctor killed herself, because she just imagine seeing that every day. It
sucks for these moments that
probably like war. It's probably like war.
Yeah. Well, it's obviously it's a terrible situation. Like, you can't compare a loss of life to a missed moment, right?
To anything else, to anything.
Right. But it sucks for moments like, you're supposed to only get married once. So people get married that way, and it is what it is.
Yeah,
people graduate high school.
Like you're going to look back on an actual wedding day.
Yeah.
For the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I'm going to look back on what could have been. I mean, what matters is what you do moving forward with that person. Yeah. And, it's just symbolic and it's a ceremony. Well, it's a chance to celebrate and have friends around. And
it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate.
It is.
Again,
the graduations, that's the other thing too. Like,
right.
These kids that
You only graduated high school
toward
once.
that. Yeah, I mean, working toward that, some of those kids were probably a hair away from not graduating because they, were maybe failing the class and they got their grades up and this and that. And now what do they got, a diploma in the mail or an email or a PDF? I mean, I don't know how that works. The not seeing your friends in school. I mean, the mental illness is going to be going off the charts. I mean, it's going to be.
Yeah, it's. I'm thankful that our son is young enough where he hopefully, if this ends within the next year, he won't be.
It'll just be like a blip on his.
He won't remember. I mean, he'll remember. Oh, mom and dad were home more often.
Yeah, it was annoying. They were always in my face. Yeah. How old is he?
He'll be 3 in 10 days.
I saw he had a first dentist appointment. I saw that on Instagram.
He did. Yeah, he's been a lot of fun, man. He's
that's great. That's just amazing. I can't imagine even.
Having the child to take care of?
No, not just, the responsibility, but, your life just.
Oh, I gotcha.
Changes, the minute that,
Yeah. It's,
that in your life.
I was always on the fence. Like, if we have kids, great. If not, that's cool too. We had a lot of, my wife and I always were very social and had a lot of fun together. I went to a lot of shows. And I remember before we even started, thinking about having a kid, we're like, do we want to give this up? And I remember looking at it.
Yeah.
And we were actually going to a friend's party at their house. We were actually outside their house. And we were like, do we want to give all this up? And she looked at me and said, you know what? I will regret it when we're 55 or 65 or whatever, and not having a kid. So, and I was like, you know what? I agree with that.
It's one of those things in life where there is a clock on it.
Yeah.
You could decide if you want at 70 that you want to go to college. I didn't get the chance when I was younger, but just the way biology works, you can't be at 75, okay, I'm ready now. It's well,
yeah.
I mean, there is adoption and all kind of things, but I mean, that's a major. I mean, I can't even. I know enough to know that I don't know what it's like. That it's for every decision I made in my life or responsibility I ever had. It never involved
kids.
Stakes were never that high,
and it's not.
And the rewards of it, I can only imagine, are unbelievable too.
It's life changing. You don't never know what. It's weird. There's people who don't want to have children, and I will never tell them oh, you're missing out. But that's your choice.
You got to do it. Yeah.
I mean,
it's not for everyone.
It's not. I mean, I know how I feel after having a child. I've said this before on several different podcasts. We've had issues having a second. My wife and I have experienced 3 losses within the past 12 months, which has been an absolute nightmare. It's funny too, because you spend all your younger years to avoid getting pregnant.
That's funny. I never thought of it that way.
No, it's such a science thing. It's one thing I always say, because you have a window of 3 days really to make this happen, right? And it's how are these people who have 1 million kids having all these kids? They must fuck every day, multiple times a day, just to it's I don't know how it's how accidents happen. I understand. I do. I'm not saying,
but for that many to the same people over and over.
I mean, I know several people that have had accidents, and again, they're very happy. Their children are awesome. I'm not knocking that scenario at all, but I'm just saying you had and also my wife and I have no trouble getting pregnant. We experience losses after the
it's down the road.
Yeah. So, I don't know where we're going with that, but. Yeah,
it's talking about fatherhood and life. And I mean, it's just, I don't know. And I think this whole coronavirus thing is making people think more deeply. I mean, first of all, you have more time. You're at home more.
Yeah.
And you're people, I think we're all becoming more introspective. So even this, talking about, I mean, we went from talking about our jobs to talking about, life and death, babies.
This is what I wanted to do. This is exactly what I wanted to do.
I mean, it's just stuff that I think you have more time. And when you sit around with nothing to do, there's usually not just blank. That's why it's hard for some people to fall asleep sometimes, like me.
Yeah.
You don't just go, okay, blank, everything's blank now. It's like all these things. And if there's
people drink.
Well, yeah, there's that too, to help fill that space. I mean,
or to just
or worse, or people get into all kinds of stuff, and that's one argument people are making about reopening everything too. Is like, oh, the casualty we're going to have of mental illness, alcoholism, drug abuse, people are home. But I mean, you're already predisposed to that, so like, no one's going to like just start doing heroin because they're home all the time, It was already, there was something going on there that was, yeah. But I mean, right now I think people are just reevaluating. People are picking up, they're moving, people want to live out in the country, or they're planning for the next, it's like the doomsday preppers.
Yeah.
Thing, I mean, there's going to be people now preparing for the next pandemic.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny too, because when this first happened, I was like, oh, we need to live smaller. We need to make sure we don't need all this stuff. And then 4 months into the pandemic, we bought a bigger house.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, granted, it's nice to be, we were home more, and the yard is more conducive for children, and it's not like we just did it for fun. It was
there was reasoning behind
strategic.
It.
Yeah, it was for a purpose. But
what neighborhood? What town are you in again?
I'm in Duryea.
Okay, that's a good spot. I mean,
we were in Duryea. We just moved to a better part of Duryea.
The Beverly Hills of Duryea.
Beverly, yeah, basically.
Duryea Hills.
Yeah, Duryea Hills. Duryea Hills. That's where I wanna be.
There you go. You should sell that. I mean, I see Will Beekman's got a house in the process. It's maybe close to being ready.
Yes, he's a neighbor of mine. Yeah, he's.
Oh, okay.
I feel like I can see him. I need to get some binoculars, but I think I could see him through.
So yeah, I got some binoculars. I got binoculars for bird watching as an early Christmas gift. They're amazing. Bird watching. Yeah. So we went down, looked across. It was either a river or a bay or something, and I was able to read what was written on the side of the vans that were parked in front of people's houses.
Oh,
amazing! You can do some damage if you want to. Look at places you're not supposed to, but it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I feel like I made it if I'm living in the same development that Will Beekman's living in. So
he runs the arena. I mean,
I know. Yeah, well,
it's weird. I kind of miss him being at the Kirby.
Yeah,
well, I mean, it's like the
I just missed both those venues, man. I missed both those freaking venues, and I was so excited. I know he was excited because it's like he went from the Kirby to the arena, and then all these shows
this happened,
started popping up at the arena. We had Tool set up for the arena.
Tool would have been the Bonkers, Bob Dylan. Yeah, been a big show,
and
Alice Cooper.
Yeah, all of it ruined.
And then all these other shows, I'm sure they had monster truck stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
And every day in my inbox, probably you too, I'm getting emails about canceled shows at the Kirby Center. Yeah. It's just like,
and I feel bad because even Will left, and then his people behind him, Drew and Ann Reldella and Lindsay, I think her name was, they were set up to kind of move things forward
keep it going.
Absence, and they were great. They've been there forever. I was excited for their, opportunities.
And then what about and then Carl Hall? I mean, what about that? I mean, that's I mean, at least they had a few years under their belt to keep it to get where they're going. But that's a sad situation too.
Yeah.
I mean, when things reopen, what's going to be there? I mean, if something like the Kirby Center shut down, I mean, I'm not speculating. I haven't heard anything like that or don't know anything. I mean, that would be a blow.
That would be terrible.
Just a huge blow because it has history. It's
history. It helps the downtown businesses.
I mean, you walk in there, but I mean, when you walk into that place to see whatever you're going to see, I take a sec. You walk in and you're like,
yeah, it's overwhelming.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's just as nice as anything and anywhere. And when I think back on, the reason I got into the Grateful Dead, one of the reasons was a relative had a free ticket for me to see Bruce Hornsby there, who I didn't even know had played with them and this and that. And then over the years, I saw Brian Wilson, and the funniest comedian I ever saw in my life, Louis C.K. Saw at the Kirby.
You can't say that now.
I think he's somewhere between
I saw him at the arena. I saw him at the arena. He's hilarious.
Yeah, and then I saw him again.
At least he asked. I mean,
I'm not going to get into that. But Bill Maher, I took my dad to see Bill Maher at the Kirby.
Okay.
Jim Gaffigan, Bill Cosby. Saw Bill Cosby.
Oh.
that one bothers me because I got to interview him and I had a cover story of Bill Cosby and I can't even use it. And Louis C.K. 2 cover stories, great tips for my portfolio. Can't use them anymore because of what they did.
Unbelievable.
Bill Cosby even told me he eats Abe's hot dogs. He whispered, my wife doesn't know. He's not supposed to eat them.
Do you think he's full of shit? Because there are people in this area, this market, who think that, they're told in an interview that they love Wilkes-Barre or they love NEPA. They think that they're not pandering to.
He was so sincere that I happen to believe him.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
You know what bothered me though? What bothered me is he told me that he eats Abe's hot dogs. Right? Because he got real quiet. It's like, it was actually the Kirby told me, like, we heard he eats Abe's when he comes to town. You might want to ask about it. And I said, Mr. Cosby, I heard this thing, might be nonsense, might be true, that when you come to Wilkes-Barre, you always eat Abe's hot dogs. And he goes, I have to be quiet. It's my wife. I can't hear this because I have high blood pressure. But when I come to Wilkes-Barre, they bring the hot dogs, I pick 1 or 2, and he goes, and I have them with the water and Evian water and a high blood pressure pill. And I was like, oh man, I'm so glad they told me to ask about that. I'm like, this is great.
Well,
I'm so excited.
That sounds legit, yeah.
So I go to Abe's like months later, sitting down in a booth having my delicious hot dog.
Picture.
I looked on the wall, and what do they have? A framed copy of Electric City, Bill Cosby on the cover, not talking about their business.
That's funny.
Or a story of, whatever, humbling, I guess they would say. But the real tragedy of those 2 guys is that I can't use those stories anymore for my portfolio. No, that's not true. It's sad. But it's interesting. You talk to these people and like, you don't realize the lives they have. And you're talking to them on the phone. Who knows what's going on?
Right.
And they're even, there's in an interview, someone is not their 100% true self.
Right.
There's even things that I wouldn't say right now that I wouldn't say if I was just talking to you without.
But again, people they who conduct interviews think that the person who says they love Wilkes-Barre or they love this or they love that, like,
you can't get caught up in it. You can't get caught up in it either. Like if someone says
that must be true because they said it.
Well, or sometimes like, you asked. I've never had an interview with someone that asks questions as good as yours, and ever. It's like, yeah, until you hang up and call the next person.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
These people, they literally have a call sheet.
That's what I'm getting at.
And if they make the call themselves, sometimes
it's like, okay, next. It's like part of their job. That's how they get paid.
Yeah. Like, Alice Cooper gave me a quote once. I'm like, that's really cool. And I read another thing, and he said the same exact thing.
And he probably has notes. He's probably given notes. All right, Alice, you're calling this person next. This is the city you're going to say that you love.
Right. And I'm not complaining. The fact that I got to talk to Alice Cooper.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. I'm not knocking that. I'm not taking anything away
from some jerk from Pittston. I don't know any better, but
I'm not taking that away from anybody.
You can't.
It's not gospel at that point.
It's almost like politics. But he said he's going to bring healthcare to everyone.
He's from.
Of course he did. It's like when you walk on stage, like, boy, it's great to be here in Wilkes-Barre tonight. It's like, can you hear that? He said it's great to be here.
He's happy he's here. Yes, because we're giving him money.
Yeah, of course he is. He's getting paid to run around on stage, make millions of dollars. I'd be happy too.
I'll tell you, I love anything.
They just come out and like, good evening, Wilkes-Barre. What is it again? Wilkes-Barre.
All right.
Whatever. Best city I've ever been in. It's the best. I'll tell you one thing though. On that note, there's something that happened that was really a true thing that happened like that. Years ago, right before I went away to college, actually, Roger Waters from Pink Floyd played a montage, and the show's kind of taken on this legendary status because this huge lightning storm happened to the point where they had to stop the show. And for the safety of the band up there with all this stuff plugged into electrical outlets and the audience. So everyone went back to their cars or went home. But I think people mostly stuck it out. So we're sitting in the cars, in the car, me and my friends, and eventually we heard noise, so we know the music was coming back. So we ran back and there. He plays this awesome concert, and he's like, "Can't believe you stuck around," you know. And he's kind of legendarily he kind of come off as not the nicest guy in the world sometimes. So thank you for staying, and this is amazing, and whatever. It's like, okay, good. So a friend of mine went to see him, I believe it was in Hershey, like a few nights later or something like that. And he mentioned Montage there. Now that's when you know it's sincere. It's like, the other night, you know, I played in Scranton and there was this huge thunderstorm and the people came back and it was the most amazing thing. And it was like, and then the reverse of that, I'm told, if you remember when Wilco came to the Scranton Cultural Center, I was so excited. I'm like, this is amazing. And he called a guy in the Jeff Tweedy called a guy in the audience a douchebag or something, like because he was texting or something. And I think then they went and played in Philly. He was like, "You're not as bad as that crowd the other night in Scranton or whatever." So it works both ways. Right. But you know, it's interesting. Some of these people, they remember everything about the town they're in, and they will say, "When I come to Wilkes-Barre, I will go to so and so and get it. I'll go to whatever." Or when I'm in, you know, because if I'm interviewing someone, I'll be like, "Oh, I read you're really into food. When you come to New York, what are your favorite places to eat?" And they'll be like, "Oh, this place is," and then other places they're like kind of like zombies. They just kind of, I mean, could you imagine if you asked like Ozzy Osbourne, like, "So I saw you played at Montage in 1998. What do you remember about playing in Scranton, Pennsylvania?" But then other ones are like, they're just really dialed in, smart, sober people that happen to be doing that for a living, you know. But I think you're right. I think a lot of it is, I don't want to say it's an act. I mean, it's just natural to say I'm happy to be there. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
Just politeness. All this is it's being polite. You don't walk out and say, "Good evening, Wilkes-Barre. Boy, this place sucks."
Especially with Bill Burr. Remember when Bill Burr came to the Sands, and he just kind of ripped on like all these buildings with rusted roofs.
Lewis Black. So Lewis Black did that. You know Lewis Black, the comedian?
Yeah.
Was at the Cultural Center, and he's like, you know, and how he's like so like jittery, and he's like, I was on the bus coming into town, and boy, this place is horrible. I'm looking at all these burned out buildings, fucking awful. And like, it was so funny because that was like his opening. Like, you're supposed to come out and try to get the crowd on your side. And
that's how Bill Burr did. It was his opening thing. He's like, all these fucking rusted out buildings.
And people probably love that more than if he kissed their ass. People probably went nuts because they think that too about their own town.
Yeah.
You know, there was, I mean, one of my favorite ones when I was a kid, I love when they do a little research and they'll like mention the local mayor or something, you know. There was, I used to be into pro wrestling like most kids. And at the CYC in Scranton, went to a wrestling show and there was this guy, his name was Erwin R. Shyster, which, good? False alarm?
Yeah, I'm good.
No. Okay. IRS, it stands for IRS. So his whole shtick was, he was an IRS agent that was a wrestler. So he had the tie and the rolled up sleeves. And it was around Christmas time. And he's like, you know, I bet all you people out there think you could go Christmas shopping at the Steamtown Mall. And everyone's like, he goes, when I come out of you, you won't have a dime left. Like, he knows our mall. You know, it's like 14 years old. It was the greatest thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like, how does he know? How does he know it? Pre-Google, too. He had to do someone had to tell him.
A little deep research. Yeah. Research.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But, yeah, that is an interesting. I mean, you know, everything is an act. I mean,
it is what it is.
When someone's on a stage, but just you can't take it too. You got to be careful because even like in your business, especially when bars are open, if you go to a place, if you have the wrong kind of ego or self-esteem or lack thereof, oh, these bars love me. They're all giving me free drinks. These bands love me. They're always calling, sending emails and this and that.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I mean, like when I was with the New York Post, I got interviews with people from Pink Floyd and The Who. I mean, that things I dreamed of. But it wasn't because of me. It's because of the email at the end at newyorkpost.com when I sent in the request. Or in the case of The Who, they emailed me. That's hard to believe. Hey, would you like to interview Pete Townsend from The Who? Like, I don't have time. No, like,
I don't have time today.
I never heard of
Who?
But you have to have enough self-awareness to realize that if you left and someone else was in your position,
same thing.
It's just, that's why it's more rewarding sometimes when you're working on a smaller, more independent level. Like the things I got for the blog, this guy, Robert Hunter, who wrote all the lyrics for Jerry Garcia and Grateful Dead. And as an interview I was trying to get literally for 20 years. Couldn't get it for the Time Leader, couldn't get it for the Weekender, couldn't get it in Philly. And I got it for Highway 81 through a stroke of luck and coincidences. And that was like the big get for me, partially because it was for my own thing. It wasn't because they said, we have to do this because it's Rolling Stone or whatever. It was nobody.com, basically, And that's like, you're not, it's nice to have that back. And we went over that before. It's nice to be part of that system. But even, I told you I work for Fox, you get people will call you back if you leave a message. Say I'm calling from Fox News, or I'm calling from the New York Times, I'm calling from CNN. I'd like to speak to whatever. They're at least going to probably respond and say, we have no comment, or we'll talk to you. Yeah. But if you call and say, I'm calling from the Daily Bugle in, Nanacoke or something, I mean, maybe they will. But
yeah.
Sometimes it's the brand and not you that's getting it done.
100%.
And you just can't get too caught up in those things because you can drive yourself crazy. You know what I mean?
I got to meet, members of Blue October and got to, the lead singer who I love that band. And the lead singer, I got to introduce him on stage at the Kirby Center. And the guy that, that lead singer, Justin Furstenfeld, saw that I was nervous. I was shitting my pants all day. And he came up to me, gave me a hug. Guy walked up to me, gave me a hug, and said, "Hey, man, you're going to be great." And I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, that never would have happened if I wasn't in the situation that I was in with, Alt 92.1. I would never have had a radio show. Granted, I'm disappointed that it's over or on hiatus, but I'm so thankful for what it's, given to me. Same with the Weekender. I would not be where I am. I would say given to you isn't the right word. It was an opportunity that presented itself, and you grasped it. You took it to heart, and But I think to wrap things up,
you have to be in the right place, right time, but you actually have to do something about it too.
Yeah,
so
to wrap things up,
give yourself some credit too.
Thank you. Yeah, to wrap things up, I think, if it wasn't for the Weekender, that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this and reach out to these people, because I know that the Weekender, regardless of how things started or ended, it had a huge impact on their lives moving forward. And
absolutely,
I'm so thankful for that moment. I'm so thankful to have met you and to continue to call you a friend and a person that I still talk to, a person that, I can reach out to and say, "Hey, I wrote this up. Can you give it a quick look over?" And without hesitation, you.
I think it's great that you're doing this. And like I said before, I don't feel that type of connection with anywhere else that I've worked. Yeah. I don't know if it's because I was there 4 years and sometimes that's kind of longer than most places I've been just because of the way the business is. But I think we were almost in a way like thrown to the wolves in a way and like, okay, figure this out.
Yeah.
Like you kind of said. And I think it's really cool that you're doing this. I'm looking forward to hearing some other people's takes on things, because I think everyone's going to have very different experiences to talk about.
It's cool because we all had a great time there, and we're all different people today than we were when we were there.
Absolutely.
Whether it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I know Christy, and we're going to talk, and Rachel Pugh and I are going to talk, and hopefully Joe Student and all those people that
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun, because I was there as an intern for 4 months under Christy Greer and Joe Student, but by the time I got there full time, they were gone. So I cannot wait to hear how they kind of got to the Weekender, and why
you had the good fortune of learning from them and being in their system, and then being in a different system with different managers.
Yeah.
And I really don't. The interesting thing I'd like to try to find out from this series you're doing is why has this place had this so much impact on all of us? Well, why this and not something else?
I'll give that
the age. Part of it, I think, is the age we were in. Most of us, when you're, I think 20s and early 30s is when you're most impressionable, and figuring out what you want to do with your life,
and you give a shit that way.
More passionate. You're not jaded yet.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe by the time you get out of there, you were jaded. That's like the ironic thing about it.
The answer I was going to give you before I go through all these people and kind of get a collective answer, or come to a conclusion. I think it's because that was a job that you had. It was typically your first job that you had. You were there for a year or two and you moved on. But you gave it everything you had. You gave it 110% every day, which I think was important for that paper in general.
You had to. Everyone had to. That's the thing too. And everyone had to do that for it to work.
And like you said, you're not yet jaded. You're not yet. You're so young, and you're not even included in like the big people conversation.
You're almost like naive. You're almost like,
it's exactly what it is.
Well, if I just work as hard as I can, everything's everything's going to work out.
If it's an 8-hour day, I'm going to work 9. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to come to every event.
A little bit ahead, and tomorrow I'll do this, and
I'll get a promotion. And for me, that's what happened. I went from an intern to marketing and sales associate to account executive to director of sales to GM. I ran the whole fucking gamut outside of.
And that's amazing. And you knew that place inside and out. You know.
Yeah, it was great. It was.
That's how it made it tick.
I love that place. Like I said, if I had gotten a tattoo of that place on my body, I would not be upset about it.
It's almost like, to me, it's almost like thinking back on college a little bit. Because it's a time when
but more fun. Yeah.
When you met some lifelong friends, some people that you drift apart from as well. And you did things you never thought you were going to do, or things you thought you couldn't. You didn't even have the ability to do. Some of it's like something needed to be done. There was nobody. We didn't have a multimedia specialist, right? So either you're going to do it yourself or it's not going to happen. So you Google how to make a podcast. Or how to make
it's all good, man. Everything happens for a reason. I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it's what you make of it. You could sit and you consult about it and say, well, this should have happened, or I should have gotten a raise in 2000, whatever. But okay, maybe. Yeah. But where's that going to get you?
Well, Mike, I'm really happy that you're where you are today. Fox News. Treating you well.
You got this.
Yeah, you got a nice brick wall behind you.
The best going.
You're not only are you emotionally sound, your home is foundationally sound.
On the third floor, it's a good floor.
It's you're not on the top, you're not on the bottom. It's perfect. I see pictures of you and your wife. You guys look very happy, and I'm very happy that you're happy. I'm happy that we still talk almost daily.
Yeah, it's like a gift to have that.
Again, it's the Weekender was. I will always say I never really have the only time I talk negatively about the Weekender is after I left, and the people. not in charge. And not that I worked there. No, ownership was just terrible, and they let it happen. They let what happened happen.
Right.
Because everyone who worked there gave or cared more than they ever should. And
it wasn't the people that worked there that did it in. Like a lot of places. If you probably did this series on a similar company in some other town. But,
so anyone listening to these, I don't ever want to come off as I'm trashing past employees or anything.
No, I don't think you do that. I think if you want to do that, you wouldn't even you wouldn't put this much time into this. Yeah. If you're doing it just to prove some point about
it's a moment.
I thought it was great. I mean, the place put me through the ringer in a way. It taught me some things, and just learned so much about so many different things. And again, like we're talking about, it's the personal and professional connections.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a professional thing. You're doing a podcast. It's has your name on it. It's part of your professional life, but it's also a personal friendship too. And that's, like, again, you mentioned Joe Student. He's a guy I'll text, what do you think about this? Or, I saw this job opening. What do you know? What do you think? Nikki all the time sending back and forth ridiculous jokes. She lives down here too. And she's been in New York longer than me by a couple of years.
Yeah.
And doing well.
I'm excited. I'm excited for the series. I'm excited for the series. I'm excited to reconnect with people that I haven't talked to in a long time, and I hope that everyone that listens or watches these is just like reminded of what a great moment that it really was. So, thank you for being part of it.
Thanks for having me. It was great to look back on some of these things.